Kirk. I just knocked out on us. We should be right back. Welcome to our workshop. Just a reminder, this is a electronic meeting broadcast via YouTube Live, linked online at washingtoncity.org/meetings. We welcome all of you that want to look at us virtually. And we welcome you that don't want to look at us virtually, see us in face. We'll move on to item 1, approval of agenda. Excuse me.
Mayor, I'll approve the agenda for October 28, 2020.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll move on to item 2, discussion of employee hires and annual performance compensation. The reason this is on there is before Denise can give us the 10-day for the budget opening. I just wanted to make sure you are all okay and that the employees that we potentially wanted to put onto there that you folks are okay with those names.
Mayor, I have just a question on that. I didn't see on the list. I understand there's a position in the planning and zoning that was a budget was approved, and I didn't see that on the list. And I don't know if there's someone here that knows the status of that. I can
tell you, but I'm going to have Ruth tell you.
I'm just curious about where that's at. And
so it's an approved position already funded in this year's budget. It just hasn't been filled.
okay.
So the funding is there. It's available. It's a position that we don't need to approve it.
So
What is the title of that position then?
City planner. So it would be an extension to Drew's position, a right-hand man to Drew.
Yeah.
Now, we did advertise and then we stopped and then it
So we accepted.
really ran
We accepted applications, Drew screened applications. We had the position still open as those applications still come in. He was still in the process of screening the new applications come in, and that's where it's been at.
So
We would need to repost that position. It's been so long, so many months, that position to fill needs to be reposted. He could keep those applicants aside, contact them, see if they're still interested or not. But we would need to repost that position and go through the process again.
So-
that can happen anytime.
So Ruth, what is the process there? So it's in the planning and zoning department. So the department head is the one that is involved with reviewing applications. Is there a group that gets together to?
There's not. So Drew will review the ones that he would like to look at. I would go through and look to see if they meet the qualifications. It's a matter of just contacting the ones he selects, just like we did manager position. We just make those phone calls. It's a matter of him just letting me know when he wants to make that hire and when he's reviewed the applicant. So the process would be, we would post that position, close that position, screen applications, interview and hire.
And I think before it was open until filled or something like that. And I think we need
That's
to
why
have
we
I
continue
think we
to
need to have a
accept.
date cut off so that we that's my view. So we
few of
get it done.
A few of the positions, you never know how many applications you're going to get. So we leave that open till filled. But when you get 20 applications come in, it's like, let's close it, put a closing date in and be done. Some positions utility department, you can post a position for 5 days and we have 40
Right.
applications.
So do we try to get feelers out there across the country like we did manager, for example?
I think he
so-
had some contacts of associates that he works with that we
Okay.
can hit out there with that.
All right.
The nationwide
Right.
postings as well as our internal and
Because as with anything else, there are a lot of people that would like to come to
Yeah.
Washington City.
But that's a
Uh,
position, it's not on the list because it's already a position.
Okay.
It's just a vacancy.
All right.
at this
Ruth, what's the official title for that job?
Planner,
Just
just a planner.
planner.
So
We have a list of the positions we're filling.
I see that it was in an email that we were given, but I don't
Oh,
see it
that's
on the
right.
packet. So I just
Yeah, it's just
I
an
just
email,
pulled
I
it
think.
up, but that was the entire list that was requested. I remember us in January or back in when we were approving the budget that we already approved the 2 officers, the parks 2, streets 2, aquatics, the building tech. So isn't that already approved?
So she needs to know so that we can go back to a budget opening after this session.
But do we have to do a budget opening because we're already,
We do, because those funds in one of the meetings, Brian, if Brian is on, could tell you that these positions were pulled out of the budget along with the increases. So now they have to go back to a budget open and put back in. So the funding's there. It's just taken off as the recommendations of council. And now it needs to be put back on the budget opening. So the July and the January hires should all be good to go. And then we were just waiting for the tentative approval of the pay increases. The only thing that was going to be additionally considered for you guys would be anything on that red zone. And that was not as a recommendation at that point from management. prior.
so that's what I remember is that we approved to have, I'm going to say I wish we had it to pull up, but the yellow,
Yeah, your July
area,
and
which is
January.
the,
So you
the
had your
January
two
hires.
You had your
And-
2 water operators, your 1 sewer operator, your 2 patrol officers, 2 parks, 2 streets, 1 aquatics, and the building tech going from part-time to full-time. Those are all good to go. But we have to still turn around and have.
You still have to move the
proposed-
funds.
That has to go to Denise. So all Brian needs to do is submit these numbers that we've already given you. These numbers need to go to Denise so that she can post that we're opening budget again.
So is the purpose of tonight then to
Get the
To-
official
to,
okay.
to say, yes, we're wanting to move forward with the yellow ones that we've already discussed and to potentially discuss the red, the
That's up
positions
to
in
you.
red?
That's up to you. Like I said.
Primarily for these, we need the, because I agree with Councilman Coates. I thought we had already approved these, but I haven't changed
did.
my mind.
We
Good.
did.
So
That's why I'm
That's
trying to
what we
be,
just want to make sure that the July, January, and pay increases are good to move forward with. We'll move forward.
July we already started with, so those were approved in the same.
And those haven't been hired. Nothing's been hired yet. So on your reds, on the red side, those are ones that were wants, not needs. The other ones, your July and January's are needs. Your reds are wants, not needs. But if available and as funds are available, you want to add those positions on, we can do that.
And I don't think we went into any of into the wants, but we did cover the needs
Perfect.
in a previous motion. So was there, I guess I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Did something not happen at that time that should have happened? Or
I don't know.
So what happened?
is
Taking
Denise
place
listening
then.
in? Can
I
maybe
think
she?
Brian.
Brian.
Oh, Brian. Okay.
So what happened when we made the tentative budget? All the Julys and Januarys and the pay increases were removed from the tentative budget. So if you're good with the July and January and the increases, we'll go ahead and put those back in the budget, and then we'll have to have a budget hearing for that.
Didn't we, Brian, didn't we address the pay increases last meeting?
They just said wasn't it that you guys just suggested that you would wanted to move forward?
We didn't make a motion.
Yeah, there was no direction for staff to move forward.
And I recall us being cautious with these and with these new hires and with the pay increases because we weren't certain how the revenue would react to COVID. I mean, we were working on this
Right.
back in
Right.
March and we were all a little skittish, but it sounds like the revenue has been what we hoped it would be, which is there to be able to take care of the
Yeah.
positions that are needed and to take care of the positions that are there.
And I agree. And I thought that we approved July and January. Now, when it comes to these wants, these extra areas, I personally want to wait and let the new city manager look at these and maybe address those for the next budget. It's kind of how I'm feeling right now. Just is that, hey, I feel like we've already approved the January. It sounds like it's a technical issue we need to clean up.
So I think we're kind of all in agreement with that. That we want to go to there. Do we need to talk about the budget or the pay increases?
We did 2 weeks ago.
We did, but I'd like to talk a little more about it. Me personally, I'm all in favor of the pay increases, but I personally think we should. It's coming up to that time of year, and I think with how crazy the city's been with the new hire of the manager and the kind of the stuff, is that we should do a one-time bonus to our employees. I think we have money in fund balance, but just kind of wanted to get the thought of the council on that?
I say you move forward before you start doing something like that, just so that gets in the process and then work on that. So that this doesn't get held up because you want to.
Well,
Throw a
I think
bonus
it's a
in there.
separate motion. If that's the case, I'm not trying to hold it up.
Yeah, I think we need to address this first also, but to add on to what Councilman Staley said is that the people that are, the residents are listening at home, we also feel like the economic outlook is good to sustain this and move forward. So it's not just what's happened in the past, but going forward, we're confident with the numbers that we're seeing that we'll be able to make these recommendations and these hires without any financial risk.
Well, so, and I do feel confident with the numbers that we've got going forward. I'm not 100% certain that we're not going to slump into a worldwide economic slump, but I think I think Utah's doing a lot better than most. But I wonder if some of the rest of them are going to pull us down a little.
And that's why I think, and you were such a great part of this budget discussion, I think this was the prudent way to approach this.
Yeah.
I really appreciated your insight on that, Councilman. And I'm comfortable with the July and the January
Yeah.
and the pay adjustments.
So, but we're not actually voting on this tonight.
No, we're just telling them to move forward.
Okay, so it's on the budget. The vote has been done. We're going to put it back in place so that they can do the
The budget opening on the 12th.
opening, and she still has to post it.
Right.
And so currently the budget opening, just to be clear, is green, yellow, pink, yellow, and blue. Sorry, I'm looking at the colors in here, but so it would be the July, what you referred to as the July, January, and then the total city compensation. Is that the category we're looking at? Because you've got also a breakdown of general fund totals and enterprise totals.
So the top column on that is the total city cost. So the two below are the breakdowns of the
Okay.
enterprise and the general fund. So the total cost for the full year is the 389, but we only do the half year because we're not giving those until January. So it'll be the 194.
And all these numbers are increases. Pay increase 1, 21.
So your first
Pay
column is just
increase
saying
1.
what they currently are.
Okay.
The next column is where they would go to and the total cost associated with that.
And Ruth, the reason that you're back tonight is because of the time lapse between when we talked about it last and just wanting to get a kind of a nod to move
Yes.
forward. Is that right?
Just there's a process. I mean, we've got to put everything into softwares and calculations and these take place January 1. So we want to make sure they're all in place and that we've talked with.
I'm in favor of moving forward with the green and the yellows.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Move on to item 3. Discussion review at the Washington City Arts Council. Debbie. Debbie wanted to present her council and meet us, right? And let us know what you're up to and what you're doing with that money we gave you.
Well, we're just doing wonderful things. But first of all, I'd like to introduce the Arts Council. Councilman Ivy, it was at his direction. I think if you remember, we were granted that money. And again, we want to thank you so much for that. And we have great plans for it. But what we like to do is here today to kind of tell you what we can do for you as an Arts Council, the plans, some of the plans we have. But the first thing I like to do is introduce you to our Arts Council. Glenda Caskey, please raise your hand. Melanie Olson, Sarah Lang, and Jack Raska. In forming an Arts Council, which is at Councilman Ivy's suggestion, thank you, because we've had a lot of fun putting some things together that we hope will help Washington City.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just said that would be good to bring forward.
And we did, and here we are.
I'm good to have you here.
And here we are. So what we would like to do is bring before the council tonight or this afternoon during the working meeting is tell you some of the things that as an Arts Council we can do for the city. And in doing so and spending that money in the process. And what we hope to achieve for the Washington Council is basically how to help the city and advise and help with improve the art awareness and the enjoyment of art in the Washington area and to the community. And to also help the city on the effectiveness of the use of the RAP tax money that would go forward for the art areas. So how best that the community could do that, and how to establish Washington City as a supporter of arts. Not having a Washington City Arts Council previously, a lot of people in the community are really for having an arts council and seeing art development within this community. And there's a lot of support for that. And that's what we want to do, is to help to educate the community about the Arts Council and the plans going forward as far as education and development and those kind of areas. We also would like to advise and help with the planning and the fulfillment of events and classes for all the residents in regards to arts. We actually have one thing already planned. I don't know if you've seen it, but in fact, I talked to the mayor about the use of the facility in the gym on December 3rd or 4th. We're having a watercolor class. And because of COVID, we're limited to 20 people, but it is a watercolor class where everyone comes. We're teaching water class. It's a 5-6 hour class. And then everybody walks away with a Christmas greeting card. This is kind of like we want to get started and do it kind of easy and trying to work around the COVID restrictions. As far as educating, we want to improve art awareness in the community. We want to help and develop programs, establish programs in the arts for the community. We want to expand the art history education in the community. And that's when I met you, Councilman. And I had with me Sandra, who is in charge of the Weavers. And we need to, our feelings are, we need to include art history in this community, because this community has a tremendous history in the arts all the way back. So I think it's important that we educate people to that. And we can also teach people how to do those same arts. The other thing too is we want to display. We want to display so people can come and see things, have community art shows, have art festivals, and also be a part of Cotton Days at the same time, but have separate events. And especially for kids, there's kids parades, art parades we can do. So there's a lot of displaying things that we can do, and especially if we can get space so that we can have a combination of art galleries and performing arts at the same time, have a central location that we would be able to do that, to draw people into the community. Because when people come into a community, to see a venue, they spend money, they eat at restaurants, they buy gas. So it's a much larger impact than just art. So what we would also like to do is integrate arts into the future of Washington City. So working with the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation to work with those groups to help make sure that we incorporate art and art education in those arenas as well. And everybody's kind of looking really straight. Any questions so far? I mean, I have a couple other things.
I just had a quick question, and I may have missed this, but the classes that you referred to, are those at the community center or just wherever?
Right now, we're using the gym at first.
The gym.
That's behind the museum.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm with you.
It's called the gymnasium,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah.
But we can use different venues. That's not an issue. It depends on the size. And right now, we're lucky in one sense because COVID is kind of holding us back. Otherwise, we would be doing much larger events. And again, with this event that's coming up, the grant money that you gave Southern Utah Art Guild is going for that. We are paying the instructor, who is a professional. We are providing all the materials, absolutely everything we need. So that's the first thing to get us off the ground and hopefully get us recognized to the community a little bit more, and for the council to recognize us a little bit more and see the benefits that this city will have by having a arts council.
Deborah, I have a question for you.
Yes,
So when you came on January 22nd of this year and
Yes.
you applied for RAP funding, it was the name on the application was Southern Utah Art Guild,
yes,
and we approved an amount for you for the promotion of art. And I recall in that conversation that a big part of that was display art, whether that is 3D or hanging art or something like that. And so I left that meeting half expecting to come back and have some art somewhere in the city.
yes.
Is that the way you understood that meeting too? Because I walked away from that and now I'm wondering that where's the Southern Utah Art Guild? And I'm wondering how, what is this committee?
This is the committee that.
This-
what-
Because I haven't heard anything of this committee until now. I don't know where it's typically, the mayor will be the one that, and this council will form a committee and the mayor will appoint and will approve. And I'm just not, I'm missing something. Did this happen prior to this council, or where I'm disconnected from the Southern Utah Art Guild and maybe what the expectation was of the use of the RAP money, and now where we've ended up today, and I'm confused.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. Southern Utah Art Guild, me as president, came in and asked for the money. Southern Utah Art Guild's whole goal is to get art and to help the city, Washington City, get art, whether it's visual or performing arts. We focus more on visual arts. But then after talking to Councilman Ivy, at the recommendation of maybe we needed to look at an arts council, because some of the things that Southern Utah Art Guild wanted to do, we needed more support, it sounded like, and we needed to get the community involved in that. And taking that, then I started the Washington City Arts Council, okay, which then can help Southern Utah Art Guild do that.
Okay, so Washington City Arts Guild is you started that. The city hasn't started that. You've started
I
that.
started that at a recommendation and trying to lay a plan out how we spend that money, because part of that money too.
But this
was-
now I just want to make sure Southern Utah Art Guild is who we approved that money to, and I'm just not sure why, because there's also the part of it was there was a budget, and I can go back through and look at it, but I remember there was a facility in St. George, and I specifically remember you talking about, and I know COVID changed some things, but doing some art promotion, but I also vividly remember in that conversation talking about an artist and having some sort of art to actually tangible that we would have. And I'd let Councilman Ivy talk about what your conversation was with him, but do we need to separate the RAP funding and the Southern Utah Art Guild from the formation of the Washington City Arts Council, or have they morphed into one, or
I'm a Washington City resident,
right?
and this was one of my concerns as well, but as president. But the other thing too that was asked of me from the council was very specifically the gentleman who sat there, and I apologize, I don't remember.
So our
his name.
former city manager used to sit here.
Yes, and one of his things was with the discussion was workshops as well. There was a discussion on getting a buffalo, and we said, well, that would take all of our money. And so then the discussion was to bring arts. I got with the community center. We walked around and looked at places that we might be able to hang art, and that community city really doesn't lend itself because of the kids and the concrete walls as far as displaying art. But our ultimate goal is the same thing. But the goal, again, after talking to Councilman Ivy, was, okay, let me start an arts council, get more direction from the community itself, and then start teaching those workshops that we said we would do with the money, and then start having art displays And to be honest with you, COVID has set us back because there's been so many restrictions. So I guess then I will,
So let me jump in right there.
go ahead.
So yes, we did have a good conversation. Have you had any talks with the city regards to how the availability on the old gym going forward? Have they kind of given you an idea of when it would be available?
Well, the only time that we've talked recently was when Melanie had a discussion to try to get that space for our watercolor, our class for watercolor.
And so really tonight, you're here to introduce the board that you've assembled and to maybe ask the mayor and the council if they approve that. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yes, and then to also see where there might be, because we've done a complete tour of the city and finding places to display art has been difficult, and to have art contests and things so that we could display that art. So we, at this point, also need direction from the council. First of all, I guess is, does the city want an arts council? Number one, because Southern Utah Art Guild can go and work totally separate, but getting the community involved by starting an arts council helps the support from the community. So I guess I will.
That probably needs to be the mayor that would.
Well, my vision of an arts council was something like the Historical Society and like the community concert band, that you started something, not that you're asking the city to be your financier. If you need help, you need some help. But as I recall with Councilman Staley, when we talked about giving you those funds, that we would see some, you could put some in here. We could use some art in here. But I'm not necessarily wanting us to manage you. You understand where I'm saying? We helped the Historical Society when they first got rolling, but now they're self-sufficient and they're off and running. On occasion, which I would hope they would ask more, but the band would ask for some funds. But okay.
So sorry, I've had a request to have you speak into the microphone.
I'm
I
sorry.
had somebody waved at the corner.
Okay. Sorry. But anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought there. One of the things that we did do as far as art display, and maybe I didn't say it correctly, but one of the things that we wanted to do is you enter this building, you have a brick area with fake plants and a wheel in it. We want to put art there. And that was a suggestion that I made to you that day, that we wanted to redo that.
And I said, to me, that is art.
And that's what I remember, Deborah. That's what I remember.
Yes.
Now that you say that,
Yeah.
was you specifically saying this beautiful brick entryway would lend itself well to some art, and I agree. So I'm just trying to catch up from there to
Yeah,
here,
that's
and then
okay.
and then get an accounting for what we've already approved.
Yeah. And the problem is the time span that's happened, the situation with the COVID and things like that. But that would be one of our first things that we definitely want to do. We need to make more, we would like this building to have more of an art feel to it because of the people that come and go in here, and we can do that. But, as I had said to Councilman Ivy, that's one of the areas that you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and you're walking into a beautiful building and walking in and seeing a beautiful historical piece of art sitting right there. The other discussion was, along with the Buffalo, is the price of that art being something that can be handled by that money. So,
So the Southern Utah Art Guild
yes,
is who received the RAP taxes. My
Yes.
understanding from you was that the Southern Utah Art Guild was primarily in the business or in the service of helping artists
yes,
get connected to revenue streams that would help them support their own art.
yes,
Did I remember that correctly?
yes,
And I remember several suggestions by council members that they would like to see other display art, but I don't remember any commitments to that. I know we talked about the Buffalo, and I kind of got the impression from you like that wasn't really your thing.
No.
It's not my thing either. I
that's
wouldn't be
CGSU.
able to put a Buffalo together.
Yeah.
I could throw paint on one, but no one would call it art.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because the first
So
thing,
are you still doing that as the Southern Utah Art Guild?
well, that's what we wanted to do was
Yeah.
when you come in this building, I wanted to change underneath the stairway, but also part of the discussion too was teaching and doing workshops and educating the community to art at the same time.
So how much of your budget's going toward the teaching and how much is going to a art?
We
Like a
are just
physical
getting
art.
started now because of the restrictions of COVID and trying to keep within those guidelines. We're starting our first workshop in December.
I mean costs. Like I'm just saying, is 50% of that funds that we provided to you going to the class, or is and 50% going to actual art? Because my understanding is we did it for the art. We didn't do it for classes. We've funded other programs for art classes, but we didn't do it for this particular application that I remember.
I'm hearing exactly what both of you council members are saying.
So I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but the money we provided was for art, not for classes.
So maybe can I make a suggestion that
Yeah.
you've got a committee together and you got some folks here. Can you just make a proposal, budget what you would like to spend your money on, what you're proposing to do, what you're proposing to ask from us in the future, what position, what place you're planning on occupying within the city. It sounds like we need to get just some clarification. And I kind of with the mayor, I don't feel qualified to lead art. But
So Debbie, what can we do? That was a great comment, but what can we do? Because I personally, I support your committee. I support the fact that you've taken initiative and tried to start a really robust art community in Washington. What can we do to help you? I understand that the RAP money is one issue and your art board is another issue. But what can we do to help you to be successful as a council and as the mayor?
Well, getting your interpretation and understanding that, yeah, but as I think what we need to do as a group is we need to go back and after you're saying what proportion is going to be spent on workshops and what proportion is going to be spent on art, we've been investigating both, but we have not cemented how much would be put for that. But what I would like to do first is to your direction. Does the council give us approval to look at a different way of walking into this building or bringing art into this building?
I guess I'm at a place where I kind of want us to step back a little bit further than that,
Okay.
just because it seems like there's a lot of people who heard one thing and maybe not another. I would really kind of like to task your committee, your council to just kind of bring forward a proposal and kind of an allocation of where the funds are going to go, what they're going to do, what your proposals are. I mean, it doesn't have to be in stone, but,
Okay.
but I just don't want to get back to another meeting where people are kind of thinking, well, I heard this and you heard that. So if you could bring some kind of a document together, I think that might be, personally, I'd like to just so we can all just say, okay, I support that. That's great. Let's move forward and kind of put you in charge of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Councilman. The more clear we can be on the roles and the expectations, I think the better. One thing that I think I would like to be clear on is I'm not interested in having the art committee be a RAP tax advisory board.
Okay.
So that would be one thing that I would suggest that this council retain the position on that. That's my opinion as part of this council.
So I hadn't thought of that until you brought that up here, but there are times with RAP tax money, especially in the arts, I wouldn't mind a voice in the community maybe, sitting on my shoulder as a conscience saying, I think there might be more of this, or there could be more of that. I'm just one voice on the council.
I think they're more than welcome to come to the rap tax.
Sure.
I mean, we do it twice a year. That's how I would love, like, if
I
there
think
is a
Councilman
board.
Staley just saying, we are not in favor of having you be our rap tax advisors. If there's some, correct, Councilman Staley, something of that nature. See, I guess my whole thought about all this when we granted the money was whether I would have seen a Monet in the front,
Not for
and a couple of these. And
$15,000.
that's kind of how, Debbie, really
Okay.
quite,
And
to
we can do
be, not
that.
to be a simpleton, but I was thinking, oh, there's this nice piece of art that came from the Arts
Yes.
Council. And you've taken it into a great direction, I think, personally. But I think with all these gentlemen, we probably should rein back a little bit. And then when you get the Monet, then you can
Yeah.
come and,
Well, I'll be sitting on the Riviera sending you pictures of it. if
my
I can afford it.
daughter's last name is Monet, so
Oh.
have her do you a picture.
Okay, so I guess for the my team behind me and myself again, please really reiterate what you would like us to do so we have a clear focus when we leave here.
I think that what they're asking for is just for you to go look at your budget, because with this new direction, you may be able to have those workshops, in a different direction. You may be able to do them a lot cheaper, where the money needs to be redirected, where I'm sure you guys, everyone in here is talented enough to teach your own specialty
Yeah.
and do very well at it. And that wouldn't really cost a lot of money for that. But, going forward, I think the one thing that the city has lacked is that expertise that your group brings. I mean, I have no talent. I've told you that. I appreciate art, but I have no talent in that area. So it's helpful for me to have somebody that would be our experts that we could rely on for that information. But as I said before, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's a step in the right direction. But again, I think that with your budgetary needs, you can probably go back with this information and readdress it and still accomplish what you want to do, and still provide the art that was discussed. And that was it's been a long time. COVID makes us, it's all changed what we do, and with that new direction. And anyway, I appreciate you guys being here.
Well, thank
So
you.
I would just say
Yes, sir.
as well, I would like you to produce a document that you can send to us that includes some budgetary guidelines where you're going to spend what. And it doesn't need to be exact, but if you're going to do classes, show roughly how much you're going to spend with classes, other revenue streams, other support, what you're going to have there. I would like to make sure that, and then suggest how you're going to accomplish what your goals are, how you're going to accomplish those goals, and what your projections are, so that next time you come before the council, you can kind of point to this. We gave you this. This is what we told you we were going to do. We have done this, and none of us are going to say, I'm surprised that something or some other thing didn't happen. I just want us to all be very clear as far as what's going forward. And I personally like to see that on, maybe just work with the mayor to put that back on a workshop to come back to
Okay.
us.
Okay, and we can do that. And I appreciate your time because we do have access to a lot of beautiful art. And again, I would love to have you walk into this building and have people go, oh.
And I'm going to come do a watercolor with you,
Yes, please do. Please do. We
because I have hidden talent somewhere. I'm certain of that.
Yeah. So I thank you all very, very much.
Before we leave the discussion, everyone else here may know the amount that was funded by the city. Can you tell me what that is right off the top of your head? 15,000. And was that anticipated that it would be every year, or just one time thing?
It's the rap tax. It was a
One time, and it was to the Southern Utah Art Guild. So
Right.
if I can build on your comments there a little bit, Councilman, is before I would see any type of future funding to a Washington City Arts Council, I would really need to have that cleared up on. I mean, I recognize what Councilman Coates is saying. There was part of the discussion that was about art education. There was also clear conversation about display art. I think before we get too far into looking at an arts council that the city supports, I would like to see that accounting first, and then you look at the other ones like the mayor pointed out with the Historical Society and the others and the Lions Club and some of those organizations. And a lot of what we do is we provide space for them to meet. Or you look at the Washington City Band, we provide a small amount to support them. I kind of anticipate where this is kind of ground up and not commissioned by the mayor to be where he selects and not necessarily city sanctioned per se, but maybe city supported. I would just kind of keep that in mind, that this is, kind of look at the way the Historical Society and the Lions Club and some of these others operate, and then let us maybe help us more so in kind than financially, and more so in promotion when you have an event, and more so in, and then I think as RAP monies, if we have something that has to do with arts, certainly share your thoughts on that, but I don't want to get upside down on things.
Okay, yes, no, that's no problem. Yeah, so any other questions? I really, really appreciate your time. And we will go back and do that, and then get on the working committee schedule again, and hopefully you will like our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep in touch.
Thanks.
And thank you all for coming. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, discussion and review of the Washington City Historical Society lease agreement. Ben?
Thought I'd come in person this time. Sorry, is it okay if
I
I
like
take
you
my
here,
mask off?
personally.
Thanks.
I'm glad you're here.
I like to come in here, and I thought just easier if there's any questions or whatnot. So just to give a little bit of background to this discussion, and I'm not sure what questions you may have, but George Staley, Mike Harless, and Don Young approached Barry and I a little over a month ago, wanting to kind of restructure the way that the current Historical Society lease associated with the old school and the old gym was being managed. And essentially what came out of that discussion is they want to continue current operations out of the old school to run the museum, as is what their goal is as a historical society. But they wanted to get away from managing everything occurring in the old gymnasium. And they wanted to give that back over to city control to kind of manage the groups that are coming into that space, such as Lions Club, concert band, American Legion, etc. We felt like that was an appropriate request. We felt like that was appropriate for the city to do that, as it is our facility. And so essentially I took their current lease and just separated it to separate those two sides, the old school from the old gym. And we as a leisure services department would then step in and make sure and manage any of those things happening in the old gym to make sure that that's taken care of appropriately.
So Ben, that's well said. That was, I actually met with a few of them, and they just said it was just getting too much.
Yeah.
To try to be there to unlock the doors and to try to create a schedule for that. So if in the future someone wants to use the old gym, who would they contact to make arrangements for that?
We're going to run that under our rentals division through the community center. So Tess will oversee that under my direction. I intend that we will come before the council with a opening for fee structure for use of that facility, so that we have appropriate direction on that but we will take that on. And if people would like to use that, because I think before we were even approached by them, this is something that I had wanted to do. I was looking for the appropriate time and place to have that discussion with the Historical Society. So them coming to us actually created a really good scenario. It was a win-win situation. And so we felt like we wanted to be able to open that space a little. We're pretty busy at the community center, and having another location and being able to, for people to utilize that historic location, I mean, to me was a huge thing.
So Ben, is there any type of a interactive calendar that people could access and they could look at it and maybe do it online, and then we could access it and see if there's something there for an event or if it's available?
We don't have it up online, but we have already added it as a resource within our current leisure services software that we keep track of all of those things. So we do have the ability, if somebody were to contact us wanting it, we could let them know what is available if they wanted to come and utilize that. So we've already taken that step in preparation that people are going to want to. In fact, the Historical Society has already been referring quite a number of people to us. So there is a large interest, and so I'm hoping that the council is supportive of moving this way, because it is definitely an interest out there.
Well, for me, I like the idea of it being used. I wouldn't want the fees to be prohibitive for use. I think that as long as those fees are very reasonable and wasn't a deterrent, I don't see a problem with it at all.
And that will come before the council, so you'll have an opportunity to weigh in as we give our recommendations. I was hoping tonight, but I've been asked that we do that as part of some other things that are coming up. So likely you'll see me in the near future to discuss that.
So
And that will include
the 9A agreement. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So the 9A agreement that we have on the agenda we won't be approving that, or
So this lease essentially coming before you tonight is to modify the lease agreement so that it would separate those two things. We could go ahead and then sign an ongoing agreement with the Historical Society to continue running the museum out of the old school, and then giving back to us control of the old gym to schedule and run that. So when you look through the lease agreement, essentially you'll see those are the only changes, is just separating.
And you're just saying that usage fees or recommended usage fees would be brought forward at a later time.
That is correct.
Right now, we're just
Right
separating.
now you're just separating.
And as I read through it, it's really just redlined clearly, simply. And I wish I could find a lease for that. $1 a year is a pretty good deal.
Well, again, we want to support. I like what you just said in the last discussion. Is we think that these are good uses of those city areas, and so we want to make that available. Thank you.
And then
Who is there a priority group that you're going to be looking to put in there? I mean, you can prioritize that certainly with different fee schedules, like volunteer organizations or others, or it'll be wide open to everybody, first come, first serve.
Well, right now we would, our first objective is to keep those that have currently been utilizing the building to give them the first priority. So Lions Club,
The community band.
Thank you. American Legion. I know that the Arts
That's-
Council has scheduled one time in there.
I think we've also got the American Legion.
Yeah.
That's what's
Plus
American.
912. Yeah.
And so those, we have already actually taken all of their, that was the first thing we did, was go to each of those organizations, make sure we had their contact information, get them put into the schedule as the priority, and then we will kind of go from there. I know personally we have some things at the community center that we would also like to do there for performances, whether it be a preschool. And I think, and from my perspective, I'm looking at it as trying to expose a whole new generation of residents of our city to that heritage and that location. So there'll be some of those things we'll probably do as well.
It's such a cool space. It's got a stage up there. And I remember
Stage
back
is mostly
when-
storage though at this point.
but it could,
Well, there's
it
almost
could be-
everything on the stage has been removed. So the
It's been
stage
cleared
itself
out.
is almost completely cleared out. That is part of what we're looking at, is to make sure that those spaces are usable.
So where did the storage go? Because I know that was one of the things that some of the organizations were trying to figure out, is where do we store our stuff? We're using this space, but we don't have a place to store.
So the vast majority of the storage on the stage was the flags,
Right.
and all the flags have gone over to the old fire station.
Okay.
There was a few other items there. I mean, I'm not going to say it's completely empty up there, but there has been some cleaning items that have been stored up there. But now that we have the new restrooms right there at the park, we can
The storage unit there. I mean, it's
we can clean
storage
up some of
facility there.
that kind of things. There are a few, there will always be a few shelves of things that we've allowed from some of those organizations. But for the most part, I don't know what else was up there in the past, but it just,
bats.
when I've been up there,
But there's also those cabinets all around the floor that kind of reduces
still
the usability of the space.
That's right.
But I think for some of those organizations to come in and actually use it, they
Yeah.
need some place to put some things.
I have discussed with them as well of maybe moving those up into the corners of the stage. Now that that's clear, it may open up the floor a little bit more with that, keep them out of sight. But I'm sensitive that I don't want to encumber that space so much that it becomes unusable in the sense that it was designed.
2 suggestions. May I give you 2 suggestions? The old heating vent that's up there in the corner, paint it like an alligator.
Okay.
It looks like
I'm serious. And then the door, fix that lock.
Oh, I will. So might I just throw in here while Mary's bringing that
Right.
up. We have recently changed the locks
Okay.
and painted and done work on all the doors in that area to make them better accessible.
Okay.
Help me out here. I haven't been there for some time. So is there a specific time that the public can walk through? Or is it not always open?
For the most part, nobody is publicly walking through the gym.
Well, I'm thinking of the museums in the
Yeah.
old school,
Yeah,
right?
museums
I'm
open
thinking.
every day.
Museum,
The museum, I don't know what their hours are.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
But,
I should have asked.
but it is open at times
Yes.
for,
Yes.
is what I recall from in the past. So
Yeah, that is open on a regular basis.
But it seems like there's a actual kind of a metal gate that works as a partition between the museum and the gym. So I
Right.
imagine that stays closed when the museum's open. But are you just envisioning the gymnasium and the stage area to be leased out as people reach out, or as needs and wants arise?
Yeah. We've had
Okay.
people
I think
that
that's
have
great. I think that's
approached
a great
about family
space.
reunions that
And
have
a lot more
approached about
usable.
concerts.
Well,
And
so
stuff.
is it actually a usable space? So are you using the bathroom outside in the park as facilities for that space? Because aren't you required to have?
There is bathroom in there.
But isn't the bathroom in the front up behind the gate?
No,
In the,
No, it's-
the gate
gate
is
is right as you come out of the historical museum, right there. Instead of into the gym, it's right in front of the bathroom.
That's a really good question, because that's the first question that I asked about it was, how's the accessibility of that going to be? So I had to walk down there and see that the gate indeed was on the old school side, leaving the restroom accessible. If it is a larger event, we have discussed that we would make sure that they know that there are restrooms available right outside that space if they needed even additional restroom availability.
yeah, I have a crazy thought. I know there are a lot of balls flying around up at the community center and activity, a lot of youngsters running around. It's a pretty rough place, but if we wanted to have art where a lot of people saw it, it would be at the community center. I don't know if that's even a possibility, but it'd have to be obviously off to the side where nothing was damaged. But just a thought.
It is, and I've done some research looking at other facilities. So based on the direction of the council on that item, we will take that as it kind of comes along.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben. You might as well stay for the next one.
I might as well.
Discussion of RAP tax funding for the pickleball court.
All right. This may have been the longest rap tax discussion of all time, but I've got new news for you. So as you go through your discussion, we had a couple of things that you had asked of me the last time we met, and I just wanted to update you on that so that you can kind of give us a decision on this, that we may move forward. So one of the things that the council had brought to me is you wanted me to reach out to residents who were close to that area and let them know and give them the opportunity to give feedback. I personally took letters to the homes of those that are right there along that, as discussed by the council last time. And I received no feedback from any of the residents in taking those around. I gave them
Did you specifically talk to the person that lives right behind that?
I did not.
So can I ask you a question? Sorry, if you're done with your comment.
No,
Councilman.
that's one. Let me finish real quick.
Sure.
Those 2 or 3 residents right there. I want a letter back from them saying they acknowledge that a pickleball can go in there.
Okay.
I just think, because I don't want them to come back to us in 6 months after it's built and be like, "Are you kidding me? You approved this?" I want to make sure that they know that it's going in.
Well, I was going to ask
Down this
Ben,
road.
how do you interpret the information you've received back from the citizens?
That they're not that concerned with what we do on our own property.
They're not that concerned until they hear ping.
Do we
ping,
need to
ping.
assign Councilman Coates to go talk?
Yeah, I mean, I
Wait a minute,
wrote
don't make
this
a vote
up.
on that.
I took it door to door. I gave them all of my information, phone, email, everything.
Well, let me get updated a little bit. I watched
Yeah.
the meeting when you discussed this before. So the idea is to eliminate the tennis courts and put in pickleball courts.
The sand volleyball court.
Volleyball. So
Sand
it's volleyball.
Uh-huh.
So the thought is that the pickleball would be a little more intrusive noise wise than.
That was my concern. I mean, I think I've shared with most of you my experience we had in another adjacent city that happened to someone and they protested because all they hear is ping, ping, ping. And they're louder. I mean, I have pickleball courts out front of my office. Now I can't hear them in my office, thank goodness. But as soon as you walk outside, you can hear it.
Yeah. Okay.
And-
I just wanted to be
And
sure
so
that
that is my biggest concern, is that we are going to change the facility right there and then all of a sudden we've created a noise nuisance to the adjacent property owner. So I appreciate you going out and giving a letter, but I'm just nervous of not having those
Sure.
people say, "Yes, I am fine with the pickleball court."
Certified letter, videotaped response.
Either or
I
and
just feel
above.
bad. I was going to say, Ben, thank you for doing it. I appreciate you doing it. Sounds like you hand delivered many of them, if not all of them.
Do we have a
But I guess,
certified
but
letter
if
that
we're
we
gonna
sent?
if we're gonna require something else, I think we need to decide what that is. If it's
Well, this
certified
just
letter.
I'm just nervous. I'm just saying.
I don't want you to be nervous.
Well, I want you guys. I'm only,
So-
like you said, I'm only one vote. If the rest of you aren't nervous, then the rest of you aren't nervous. But
So the
I'm just-
content of your notice to them was that we're changing it from volleyball to pickleball. Did you say anything about whether it could be a little more noise here or anything like that? or-
Yes, I
Okay.
included that in there, included that this was something that was before the council for consideration. Let them know that the council would be welcome for their impact, for any of their feedback. I also gave all of my contact information to be able to get back with me if they would like to submit something that I could then present to the council if they would like that.
So how many adult type personages did you hand that letter to?
Uh,
How many like
you
maybe
accusing him
third
of handing
graders?
it to the neighbor kid?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a fair question.
I gave it to 5.
Every single one of them was to an adult.
Yes.
You know, it's feasible. Just a kid came to the door and mom and dad weren't there, so you hand it to the kid. But you know, you put it.
And I can't say, I can't say if they're renters and maybe they just don't care because they're going to be gone, or maybe it's not that big of a deal to them, or.
Did any of them? Did you say to them, "Hey, you don't look trustworthy. Can you get a different adult?"
Well, I'm so, and maybe like I said, I appreciate you going out there and walking to the door, but typically notifications are to the property owner
Sure.
through certified. I'm guessing it's certified mail. I mean, Denise.
Certified. I think we just
Oh,
send it in
just
the mail,
send it.
right? Yes.
So it's just through the mail. I'm just making sure we're checking all the boxes.
I
making
just-
sure we're doing the process.
I apologize if I misunderstood
We didn't specify.
what we wanted to. I just
Certainly, we didn't specify how that
simply
how that
was
needs to go
looking for feedback
So,
to get there.
so is there a certain time frame, during the day that it would be utilized and not in the evening so that people aren't annoyed when they're out in their backyard with the barbecue or whatever? Or,
Yeah,
or is it just open?
It
wide
would be
open
during our open hours, so it could conceivably be
in the evening?
in the evening as
Okay.
well.
10 at night, right?
It could be till 10 at
10 at
night.
night. Yeah.
So there'll be lights there
There is, yeah, lights.
But your lights are down facing.
Yes, they are. I mean, we've also considered landscaping thing. You know, we have the solid block or solid
There's a sound wall there.
concrete sound wall there. And we've also looked at landscaping options too also, and keeping the courts as moved. And I think we're all conscious of what Councilman Coates is bringing up and trying to give the residents as much option as possible to.
Ben, was there any consideration for some type of a net to keep the balls from going into their yards?
Well, we will have the chain link fencing, as you've seen around most pickleball courts, that'll be in that. Plus, outside of that chain link fence is an additional 30 feet before you even get to the sound wall. So you'll have the taller fence.
That wall's
also
quite
30
tall. Like it's a retaining wall and then a 6-foot
Yeah,
wall on top
it's-
of that. Is it a 4 foot?
It's at least 6 or 7 foot tall.
With vegetation and shrubberies kind of growing up over it.
That is correct. There's pine trees and things along that wall as well, and through that location. So that was one item.
Yeah, I think before we go to the next one, and I think
Sure.
I know what it is. How many courts were we able to fit in there?
4 courts.
4 courts.
Yes.
And am I right that the other concern was the cost?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this.
So the cost was the other side, and I think that the council wanted us to go back and readdress that.
What was the original proposal you had?
The original proposal was $250,000, which is post-tension concrete and based on what we have recently done, particularly at Boilers Park and some of the other locations. We actually were approached by a company shortly after this. It was fortuitous timing. I had actually approached Cole and had asked if this is something that the city was interested in looking at. It's a sport court kind of material. And they had recently finished a pickleball court project over in Santa Clara using the material, as well as one at the Staybridge Suites down on South Bluff area. So we took the time to drive over and see that and see what that looked like. My concern all along the way with this was, would that play the same? Would it be an acceptable surface? That is something that I had expressed. They have actually had come out with a new court surface that's brand new on the market that is to be approved by the Pickleball Association of America. And so that kind of did a lot to take away my concern with how that would play and whether it would be an acceptable surface. They gave us a quote on the project that came in at about half the price of what we had originally brought forth. So
this court would be approved by the Pickleball Association of these here United States.
which was my biggest concern if we're going to have
If you can have tournaments.
So let
events
me,
or people
is
that want
the
to come and play.
Pickleball
So
Association going to cover it at the concrete cracks? Because I see that you
Right.
pulled off the post-tension
That's right.
concrete slab, which was the
That's right.
big cost, and
Yep.
that's a big problem with these pickleball courts is you're going to get cracks, and so I'm concerned.
So the one in Santa Clara was a tennis court that had cracks all throughout the surface, and they had brought in this surface to go over top of that, the sports court surface.
Is it how long's the warranty?
Yeah, how durable is it? Do we know?
It's a 20-year warranty.
It's kind of a rubberized material.
It's a
isn't it?
rubberized
It's-
material that's about half to 3/4 of an inch thick that sits on top of that surface
So you just
You put that
pour-
over the concrete?
over the concrete.
Scar it.
Yeah.
Grind it.
So it sits on the surface. It's kind of like a floating surface.
So was it
that
your,
even as it
Ben, was it your thought that as far as the post-tension, the courts have been there, the cement's been there for a while, part of it, right?
well, kind of our thought, my thought process would, because I was concerned with the same thing. The post tension is obviously the gold standard given the play that we would get, probably some youth leagues and some other things, looking for a surface that would be well playable, durable, yet we wouldn't deal with the crack. Because again, where it's the floating surface, if you get some of the cracks in that concrete, it will still be able to maintain the surface integrity on top.
But that soil in that area should be good for that.
Yeah.
But so I'm hearing you correctly, though. They haven't yet approved it. They're trying to get it approved.
It has been approved and will come out in the 2021 rule book that's effective January.
So I actually really appreciate that you got creative with this and that you stuck with it. And I'm just mostly thinking out loud, which might get me in trouble here. But the biggest thing in the back of my mind that I worry about is that, I'm coming to terms with thinking that that is a great use of the space. 4 courts would be a great addition to a community center. There's no doubt that it would be used and that it's a benefit to people of all ages. The concern that I have is that it gets a reputation of not being as good of a court because it's this a different surface than a lot of them around here. And sometimes you pay a little bit more, but you know what you're getting. Sometimes you pay less and there's a risk there. And so I'm kind of torn right now with the direction to go, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think I've come to the fact that I'm generally supportive of pickleball courts there. And now I'm coming back to kind of weighing the cost versus benefit of both types of courts. I'd love council input and thoughts on that too.
You probably are at risk of having it be the most popular court in town. I mean, it could be that the folks with hip replacements prefer that type of court over something
It'll
else.
certainly be a softer
Internal.
surface from that perspective. That
Yeah.
is one of their selling
Don't you-
points.
It
But
will
even
probably
sometimes the
dull the
softer-
sand in the
The softer surfaces can also grab the foot more and you can twist an ankle more. If you're looking at sports injuries aggregated over time and age demographics, I just threw a bunch of words together there.
And can I ask you as well, this addresses construction only. Do you have some cost in kind of a design and layout that needs to be drawn up for a contractor to build from? And to Councilman Ivy's point about soil, do we need to do where we're putting a
My
concrete
understanding
slab?
that this would cover all of their costs to be able to come in and put in
Put it in,
what
okay.
they need to do. There would likely be some landscaping that our parks department would additionally need to do around, because it's not going to fit exactly on the current
right.
footprint, but sprinkler
to move
lines
some
and
things
some other
back.
things. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to move sprinkler lines, and you're gonna have to probably do some landscaping things. But
So this company, Sport Court out of Cedar, obviously this is a new product. And so you can't go and say, what's the longevity from other people that may have had this court put in. But have you checked into references of this company? Is it something that you feel comfortable with?
like I
in
said,
that
we just
regard?
went and looked at the locations where they have done here locally. It looked like they had done really well. Good work.
Did you visit with the
I have not talked to
owner
them
or-
at those locations, but I can certainly,
but it looked good to you? It looked like it was.
yes.
Well, it'd be a first for the county.
So the other question I had is typically with this type of dollars, you got to bid it out, get 3 bids.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that this is just an estimate.
Yep.
That's proposed to us, and then you would bid it out per city standard.
We'd have to bid that out. And certainly we could put in that this is the expectations that we have of what it would be. Essentially, my goal here tonight is to present the things that you had asked me to go back and look at, present you some options, and one way or the other, whatever the council goes towards this, just to giving us the direction to put some finality to this. If there's other things that you have as priorities, we would like to know yes or no. So we're either moving forward on this or we start looking at other things that we may want.
I'm leaning forward. I'm leaning towards liking this. We can get the adjacent property owners ironed out. So do you anticipate that it might be a problem getting 2 other bids? Is this product, did they ever use the term elastomeric? Was that ever, have you ever
No.
considered? Okay. You anticipating that you could get 2 other bids from that does
I am
this
not
specialty?
sure whether we could, given
You just have to put it out. to
Oh,
bid.
yes, we can put it out and they
Put it
may
out to
be
bid
the
and
only
let
ones.
people
Can you
bid.
put it out and not specify this surface? Put it out as a court, and we can see the bids as they come in.
You could do it
Whether
as an
be
alternate,
concrete,
alternative.
Bid
allow
alternate.
One surface or
alternative
the other.
cost-saving alternatives like this, but and we don't. I don't know. Maybe we can continue to think about, like Councilman Staley says, we don't want to spend that much money and have it be not a great court for tournament play. But if we could put the bid out and actually get a couple of real, or I don't want to say real, but standard courts bids come back in,
Appreciate
as
that,
well
actually.
as well as this type of court come back in, I would be at least entertained by those numbers.
So the item that we have on the agenda for the regular meeting for the RAP tax, so what are we approving there? An amount, or just that we're in favor of moving forward with a bid?
Well, we had asked for the $250,000 as part of the RAP tax, but you could specify that however you would like in that item. If you wanted to put a cap on the amount of money towards it, or if you wanted to leave it open to whatever, items come in.
I'm thinking it might be advantageous to maybe wait and see where your bids come in, because from what I'm hearing, the council may consider going the traditional route if it's monetarily justifiable, because there is a little bit of risk not knowing that this surface would be durable in the long run, where the other surface is proven. But we all know how expensive post-tension is. And the question is whether or not we need it. So it might be good to get some expertise on that. But getting those bids might help the council to decide too, whether it's worth spending more for a higher comfort level or not.
I guess just in a general sense, there's a lot of discussion here, but I'm in favor of the change as well. As long as we can satisfy the concern about the
Satisfy me,
neighbors.
you have to satisfy
And
four other.
we wouldn't want to get in the middle of it and then have to back up on anything. But to me, it seems like and I'm as well. I think we spend a little more to make sure that we got something that, as long as the neighbors are okay with that. So.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Ben? Thank you very much.
And did I mention the part about thank you?
Hey, thank you for letting me come in
Thanks,
and
man.
speak with
Thank
you
you,
today.
man.
Thanks.
Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn and take 10 minutes before we start.
So made.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
All right. Those courts.
Oh my gosh, Kurt. Well, when you swung by, when you swung by.
I drive by those every time. I didn't see you guys until I was in.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought you saw some came by.
I drive by them every time. It's just, it's joy.
Yeah, it is. And we could have 10 more.
I think that's
I get where he's coming from.
we don't want
He wants somebody to write. He wants somebody here. Yeah, here, let me sign this. This one, and I have-
Were you surprised at the sentence?
I was just surprised that it was even. I've never heard of that. I
You didn't hear about it before?
No. I'm so naive about stuff.
Okay, well, so the family history is Jill's, my ex-wife's brother is married to Pam, who married
Okay.
his sister.
Okay.
But when it came out, my phone blew up. And more
So was it?
or no story? Is that all?
No, no, it's not.
Give them certain powers. They'd be getting a chance of getting any funding from it because it'd be like it's giving money to a power board. So she, and we've never said that. About right in the middle of district line. I think Kimberly made it start that showing the public that I have a cushy, I have a funny relationship with private organizations that they don't trust the same. I get it if it's a challenge. But it's an organization they're providing power, which is completely against their own power company. And we're going to have an input, and that's what we need. Give them space. No, I got it. You didn't say it. You didn't go to me. And I also said it. So now what's going on here? What are they asking for? What are they? Yeah. It's not obvious. Let me tell you this. It's clearly not obvious. And I wasn't sure if it came from Matt when he came to work. That's going to be happy. That's the public. And what's the public says? Why do you think that it's program Mountain Hill has, and what it is, all let's go. I have no idea what that means. And then they're going to 2 years down the line. I know it's not binding, but you said you would. Why are you asking your power company for us to put it on this bad for the power company? I don't know. That may have a great reason. I don't know if the reason is that. But at least, I'm like you. That is, to keep the words late, if you just show it out like that, you probably should. I'd like to sit down with you guys, maybe next work session, and tell you what you told me. Hey, you've never heard of it. It may sound like we needed prayers for it, not like prayer. Would you pray for us? Please pray for us. And that wouldn't be offended by me. I get to contact with them. Back to St. George. That's what I'm doing.
Thank you guys.
That's fun, but I think that you guys have any clue. You know, you wouldn't. I didn't.
He's feeling like he's being
We're going to make
intimidated.
a motion to table 8A.
He was feeling like he was being
You want to
intimidated.
strike it or table it? On the pickleball.
We need the bids, I think.
Excuse me. Welcome to our city council meeting tonight, October 28th. Again, just a public notice that this is an electronic meeting and it's broadcast via YouTube Live. And any of you out there that would like to participate via YouTube, it's on washingtoncity.org/meetings, and we would invite you to listen and participate. I've asked Councilman Ward if he will offer us an invocation, and I'm going to turn the time over to Troop 435 to take care of our flag ceremony tonight. And we welcome you, and we're glad that you're able to come and do that. So thank you.
Mayor, I didn't think of this before, but you have a cordless microphone. Does the troop need that for their? Would that be helpful for them to have a cordless microphone? Okay. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to gather in the exercise of our freedom and the participation of the governance of this city. We ask thee for a blessing of thy peace upon us and the citizens here. We pray that as a nation, we might be worthy of thy peace and blessing, and the guidance, that thy guidance would be upon the leaders of this nation and world, and pray for those who are suffering currently with the effects of the worldwide pandemic. This petition we place before thee in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Color guard, attention. Audience, please rise. Color guard, forward march. Audience, please put your hand on your heart. Color guard, halt. Color guard, cross the colors. Hoist the flag of the United States of America. Hoist the flag of the great state of Utah. Color guard, honor the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard, return to ranks. Audience may be seated. Color guard, dismissed.
Thank you again very much, Troop 435.
I would say those young men are well schooled in that process. Thank you. Leaders, done a great job.
Rekindles my love for America.
Yeah, it does.
Really does. Thank you. I want to move on to item 1, approval of the agenda with a modification on 8A. Did we want to move to strike that or table it? I can't remember.
Can we bring it forward? It seems like there might be some discrepancy. Maybe we can just clarify what we're going to ask of staff. Can we bring it to earlier in the meeting?
In front of number
Discussion 8A.
Move it up to item 3A. or 3B or 3 after item 3? Is that what you're saying?
I would support any of those.
Mayor, I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda for October 28th, 2020 with item 8A being moved after item 3.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Announcements. I do have a proclamation I'd like to share. It's a presentation of the International Institute Municipal Clerks. Hold on, wait a minute. After that, wait a minute. First, sorry, Tara. Tara, would you come up here, please? Tara has done all she can do to move herself forward and upward and onward, correct? And she has moved herself up from the International Institute of Municipal Clerks to Deputy Recorder. And we want to thank her for that and recognize her for achieving the Master Municipal Clerk certification. And who's going to present that to her? Well, come on up.
First off, can you speak into the mic for our recorders? That's me being a jokester. Sorry.
I've never heard that. This is Leanne Warnack. She's from Ephraim City, but she is representing the Utah State Municipal Clerks Association. She's our past president for the state.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me come and take up time in your council meeting. Before I start, I would just like to say thank you to the Scouts for their color guard presentation. It literally gave me chills. It's been a while since I've done this, so I've got some notes. I want to make sure I don't forget anything because this, I really want you to understand this. This is a big deal for Tara. She has done a lot of work. As Denise told you, I'm a past president for the Utah Municipal Clerks Association, and we partner with the International Institute of Municipal Clerks to provide learning and training and experience for the recorders so that they can gain knowledge and make these certifications. To achieve her MMC, which is the Master Municipal Clerk, she first had to achieve the Certified Municipal Clerk certification. And I'm not sure how long that took you. How long would you say? About 3 years, me too. It takes generally 2 to 3 years to get your CMC. And she did that. It took a lot of work, a lot of time in classes, trainings, volunteer work, and to receive your CMC is about the equivalent of an associate's degree. The education that they are given from IIMC is through a certified university. And for us, that's SUU. There's so many acronyms, I can't keep them all straight. SUU does the trainings for our clerks, and we get full college credit for those. But in order to get her MMC, it's another 2 to 3 years after the CMC, and I believe she did that in 2 years. It took me 3. We're very proud of Tara, and I'm sure Denise is too. We have approximately 250 cities and towns in the state, and about 230 something members of UMCA, Utah Municipal Clerks Association. We at this time only have 38 MMC designations. She's in an elite group, and I can't think of any other city off the top of my head that has 2 master municipal clerks. So it's pretty great. Anyway, to get her CMC after her, or MMC after her CMC, she had to earn 60 advanced education points, which is equivalent to 240 hours of in-class coursework. She also had to earn 40 experience points. They receive 4 points a year for full-time work in an administrative position. So there are lots of other things that she has to do. She can also earn points by serving on committees for the UMCA. There are lots of requirements that I don't have the time to go through right now. But with all of the work that she has done to get her MMC, it is the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. And I just want you all to understand how hard she's worked for this. I would like to present her with her plaque. I can get my fingernails under it. Her Master Municipal Clerk plaque. And she can hang that on her wall with pride. She has a pin, and you're now going to have MMC after your name on all of your correspondence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And a gift from the UMCA board. Thank you. Come up and be in a picture. We'd like to get a picture for our newsletter.
Jeff, you want?
Yes, anything.
And then just
Yes.
stand and
Okay. I can stretch.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I'd also like to thank the councils and the previous councils for your guys' support for us to be able to do our schooling and to attend the conferences and do the things that we need to accomplish these. And so we'd like to thank you for that.
Terry, you want to say anything?
I'll sound like I'm gonna cry, but I actually just want to say thank you so much to Denise, because she's so great to encourage me to grow and continue learning in my position, and that's pretty unique. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
all.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to read this proclamation honoring Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas, excuse me, it is a basic human right to live a life free from violence and abuse. And whereas domestic violence is a serious problem that occurs in all cultures and communities and does not discriminate by age, gender, social class, race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, or sexual orientation. And whereas 1 in 3 women, 1 in 7 men in Utah will experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And that 60 to 75% of families with intimate partner violence have children who are also impacted by the violence. And whereas seniors are also victims of domestic and sexual violence and are part of the most underreported group. And whereas domestic violence related homicides account for over 40% of the homicides in Utah. And 80 Utah children will witness the murder or attempted murder of their mother every year. And whereas awareness and intentional cooperation are required to find solutions to abuse and intimate partner violence. And whereas it is the role of local government to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Nielsen, Mayor of Washington City, Utah, partnership with the Dove Center, as we do every year, and do hereby proclaim October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. In the city of Washington, we urge all residents to use October as a Domestic Violence Awareness Month to learn how they can break the silence and end domestic violence in our community. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause to be affixed the seal of the city of Washington, 28th day of October, 2020. Thank you. Would you like to come up and?
Yes, we would love just a quick minute. You guys probably haven't forgot us. It's only been less than a year since we visited you last about our project with Aaron's House. But first, I just wanted to thank you for, making this a part of your agenda during the month of October again this year. This is a somber topic. It's not something that people like to hear about, and that's really what gets in the way of talking about it. But when we have people like you who are willing to put it on the agenda and make it a priority and stand side by side with us in this effort to increase awareness, we can actually do something about it. And although it's a somber topic, we actually have some really positive things happening in our county with our Washington County Coordinated Community Response Team. That's a collection of, I want to say
14 or 15 agencies.
There are a lot more than that. We regularly,
In a while.
we regularly have, probably more than 20 people attending our meetings, and they represent different first responder agencies, law enforcement, medical, Children's Justice Center, victim advocates, nonprofits like Dove, and law enforcement, the college, Washington County School District, County Attorney's Office. I mean, we've got a lot of support, and this month we've been working together as a coordinated team to increase awareness. And so we've got some online and some physical visuals out in the community that you'll see that are supporting the awareness efforts of domestic violence. And that's actually a really positive thing that not every community can say they have. So it's been a part of what I want to share with our city councils is we actually have some good things happening, and it's important for you all to know that so that we all can kind of work together as leaders in our communities. But we have an event coming up it's an online virtual event on Monday, November 16th at 8:30 in the morning. We'll have it's a very short, like 30-minute virtual tour of our Aaron's house and our shelter. And we'll be sharing just a couple of thoughts as well with some more information, and hope that you all we'll be sending you the information about that, but hopefully you all be able to jump on and see that. And please get in touch with us if you have more questions. But I wanted to give Madonna Eminent to just give a quick update about our CDBG project with you all for Aaron's house.
All right, great, thank you.
So we are in the process. We've had the architect come. He's drawn up the plans. We just finished, praise God, the environmental study, which was a nightmare. So we're moving forward. We're looking forward to now just getting our contractors and getting it signed and moving on to the next step. So thank you all. We appreciate your support. And yeah.
Things going okay over there?
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Now that we survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. It was a nightmare. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it. We heartily support all that you are doing and continue to do.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8A. Consideration to approve the request for RAP tax funding for the pickleball courts located at the community center. Anybody want to lead off on that discussion?
I think I'm just,
Excuse me, what we're asking for here. So I think, I guess I kind of had the opinion that that we had a somewhat of a consensus from the council that we would seek for some bids, both the traditional and the irregular. And
Yeah, so you could give that direction if you wanted to say that you're willing for it to be up to 250,000. That would include the two alternative surface structures that then could come back for your approval as to which.
Do you typically put a cap on the bid?
Well, you don't have to necessarily, but just if you chose to say this is how much RAP tax funds we would be willing to say, but.
Well, I guess we want to see what it would cost to put it in. I would like the bid proposal to go out in such a way that it would encourage at least one, at least the one type of sport court that you mentioned. If not, if there's others that would be alternative surfaces that would work well.
my opinion.
I don't know if you want to suggest that it has to be approved by the Pickleball Association or whatever, but
don't we have to, I think he can figure out how to spec the material. I think more of the question is, do we need to make a motion to move forward on, are we for this,
making a motion
courts?
to approve the bid at that point, is that correct?
Well, that's to approve the bid, but are we, typically you approve the idea, then they go get their design and put it out to bid, and then you approve the bid afterwards. So I
realize
see it as
that's
two steps.
typical, but I don't know. And maybe we should
Just
just
because-
figure out if we have enough support to even have it at the location it's got.
That's kind of where I'm at, is are we going to, do we want it there? If we do, then we move forward and look at different alternatives on how you bid the process. So I'll be frank, I'm still I mean, I appreciate you going out there. I'm just super nervous about that location, even without us having a certified mail saying, here you go. But that's me. But if the rest of the council is comfortable with it, then I think we move forward as either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. I mean, in my mind, we have the funds in RAP tax. If it's 125 or it's 200, depending on the type of court, that's a different decision than if we want the pickleball courts there.
That is what we're requesting today. If the funds are available, it's asking exactly what Councilman Coates said, to approve for that purpose. And that's what we're seeking for the council on tonight.
But technically, we could go get bids without approving the purpose.
That is correct.
Or we table it as they go get bids, if that's what you want to do. But typically you don't bid it until after you do a project.
Yeah.
And then I presume this bids would be site specific, or no?
Would be site specific. Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering about the engineering that would be involved in putting together a bid. They're not going to do any engineering to go look at that site and soil test or.
No, well, he's indicated that the design would be done at least by the group that gave you the quote. They would do the design as far as the layout and how everything comes together. The soils is another matter. I think Councilman Ivey brought that up. That's a good question.
Yeah.
May not take much, but it probably would be advisable to take a look at the soil.
I would be interested to take a look at the bids either way, however you decide to purchase.
I can tell you the soil is sand right now.
Is it sand?
I don't know what's under the sand. You'd have to ask one of you guys.
There could be some clay. We have clay right over by the library. If we don't realize that, there's clay close by. But I guess too, if we get a bid, we don't necessarily have to take the bid. I don't suggest that we get in the habit of not taking the bid, but we can just get bids. They can come before us and then we approve it or not.
I like that idea, Councilman. I think that's maybe a fair compromise for where everybody's feeling at this point.
I think anybody that's bidding on it, we would certainly want to let them know that it's our full intent to move forward, but cost could become a factor when it comes down to approval.
I don't guess that needs to be made in a motion. I think we can just give that as direction.
Just direction to move forward on that.
But do you need to table then 8A? Or do we really not to take any direction?
Don't you think you'd table it for when the bids come back and you make that motion then?
Yeah, I
Sure.
would recommend you do that.
I can make a motion that we table item 8A and until such time as staff notifies us that they have bids to come back and for us to review.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Go roll call vote.
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Thank you, Ben. Item 4, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Any in
Yeah, Mayor, I need to declare most of these are the same as I had last meeting, but one additional. Let me just tell you which ones. Item 6A, 6B, and 7A.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Now we'll move on to the consent agenda to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 10/8/2020, 10/14/2020, and the final plat for Shooting Star Phase 2, located at approximately Rio Virgin Drive and Centaurus Way, applicant Western States Venture SG LLC.
If there's no discussion, I would approve that, or motion that we approve the consent agenda, items 5A and 5B.
Did you guys receive the minutes for 10?
They came a little later. I think the part that you had mentioned, Councilman, looked like it was updated to me.
Yeah, I didn't.
But you might want to just glance at them real quick to make sure it's to your recollection as well.
That's why I'm.
Or we
only
could
seeing
delay those
10/8.
approval if you want to, if you want to look at them.
It was last meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So 10 14 was
10-14
originally
would've been
there,
our
and then
last
10-8
regular meeting.
10-8 came just a little bit later.
I know I read it. I'm good if you guys are good. I did not see those because they aren't in my packet.
You had I'm not seeing him come in. You had a specific request on those minutes. I'd like.
But that's the minutes I have. So those are updated. That was the
you don't have the 10-14, aren't there? Are they?
10-8 was the ones I requested last time to be held off, and those are here, and those have been updated.
Okay.
But the 10-14, I did not get a chance to review.
So I would change my motion to just approve the consent agenda, but only the 10-8 of 2020 council meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
So, okay, sorry. I'm just trying to be clear with what we're
The
And
minutes
14 will
approving the
go on to the
10-8.
next council meeting.
For 10-14, will move forward to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And the final plat to be.
Lindy, aye.
Correct, okay.
Coates, aye.
Maybe I.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
I need to apologize. There was another announcement I would like. I'm going to have a Councilman Ivy make that announcement if you don't mind.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. The youth council will be trick-or-treating at the Haunted Mansion Saturday from 5:30 to 8. I'd love for your kids to come by. The youth council will be dressed up, and they're going to be outside on the front porch to kind of do the COVID thing. And just a reminder, I know it's ever on everyone's mind, but election day is November 3rd. And I wondered if Councilman Staley would give an update on the bison. Is that something that?
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Yes, I appreciate you bringing up November 3rd, and I think voting's already started on a number of state and national things. November 11th is Veterans Day, and Washington City has a history of being the city in which Veterans Day is primarily recognized and observed throughout the county. And starting at 9:30 a.m., we will be unveiling Blazing Freedom, which is a bison that is in partnership with Dixie State University. And the purpose of this particular bison is to honor our veterans. And I think that as each of you have a chance to see this bison, you will just, you'll be in awe and in reverence of the sacrifice. As I've seen this bison, what I particularly love about it is that it seems to tell everyone's story, or that everyone can relate to it from land to air and sea. So that's exciting. After that, we will continue with the parade. And Councilman Ivy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that starts at 11:11. And then we have a fantastic youth participation with songs and stories and presentations in the corner here of Veterans Park. And all veterans from around the community are invited to attend that. And the committee there also provides a lunch for the veterans to honor them. So that's a really exciting event that's coming up on November 11th.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I add just something that the council may be interested in attending? The Field of Flags will be put up on that Monday before Veterans Day starting about 5 p.m. Field of Flags. And then if you're interested, the fifth graders at Washington Elementary will be putting up marking the veterans' graves with little plaques and flags. And, you know, it's really a neat experience. I had that opportunity for a lot of years to be a part of that. And if you have time, that would be mid-morning. I think they're planning on about 9:30 on Monday morning to put those up. So if you would like to go.
Thank you very much. That was great to bring that up. I appreciate it. By the way, the bison is on display up at Brio Clubhouse right now. So if you'd like to go up and see it. We'll move on to item 6, preliminary plat. Consideration to approve the preliminary plat for Red Vista, located approximately 1100 East Telegraph. Applicant Red Vista Development of Orem, LLC. Drew?
Yeah, I'm coming, Mayor. I'm just trying to get your.
Okay. Tonight.
You guys see that now on your screen?
I can see it.
Okay, that's all that matters. Okay. The applicant is requesting approval of the preliminary plat as stated for the Red Vista FHA condo subdivision. The applicant is proposing 72 condo units on an area coverage of 3.68 acres. The zoning designation at this particular area is the planned unit development residential, and that's taking advantage of the multifamily standards. The surrounding zoning to this is R3 to the north, C2 to the east and south, and residential agricultural 2 acre to the west, which is the sod farm. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning, which is the PUD. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances at this location. Staff's reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat as outlined. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and reviewed the request at their October 7th, 2020 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat for Red Vista FHA condo subdivision onto you, the City Council. And that's based, of course, on the findings and subject to the conditions that are in your report. And I'll be glad to point out that there are actually 3 extra. The first 12 are the standard that go with any preliminary plat. And we have added condition 13, 14, 15, which I'll read those out. 13, the development will conform to the approved plan unit development zoning at this location. Number 14, the traffic study will need to reflect the improvements necessary on 1100 East for future improvements. And number 15, there shall be included on the plat the county reference monuments associated with the stated basis of bearing line. This needs to be added to the plat for going on to City Council agenda, and that was the conditions the Planning Commission moved forward to you, gentlemen. Be glad to answer any questions you might have on this particular preliminary plat.
So the one question I have is more for Public Works on the, I look at the, it doesn't look like the water line loops to the, there's only one line into the site. It loops within the site, but doesn't loop. So just concerned we're not getting our looping per our current ordinances.
So we will address that at construction drawings.
Okay.
You know, this came through as a PUD. Are there any changes to what was initially presented and approved? I know that they're all 3-story buildings now, but are there any other changes that have been made since then?
No, this is actually the exact same exhibit you had as part of your PUD on the site layout.
Is it possible on these, whenever these PUDs come back before us, to just include everything that's already been approved with the packet? I mean, I realize you're not going to get that in there today, but.
Yeah, I would second that. It'd be nice to be able to see what we're looking at.
Yeah, I have no problem adding those exhibits in for you on future ones.
Any additional questions for Drew? I'll entertain a motion if you're ready.
There, I'll take a stab. I'll motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Red Vista, located at approximately 1100 East Telegraph Street, based on the findings and subject to the conditions as listed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Abstain.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. That is approved. Item B, continuation of a consideration to approve the preliminary plat of the Boulders at Coral Canyon, located at approximately 3950 East Telegraph, Cole West.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was tabled at the October 14th, 2020 City Council meeting. Council wanted more time to digest information as it relates to curb, gutters, sidewalks, and/or the other proposed trail and possible connections to Telegraph at each end of the proposed preliminary plat. As you see on this exhibit, the trail, just going to bring this up real quick for you. They had a trail running along, you can see the back if you follow my red pin, and so on, all the way down till it met up over here at the end. And then what I want to do is jump over and show you that that trail's now gone. And let me take off my red pin there. And so in essence, what we're going to be doing is taking the trail now out along the street. And so the new cross section, I just wanted to show you this. And so this is the extension on Telegraph. And then there's a 26-foot gap that we talked about last week between where the plat starts. And so this is the proposal by the applicant to add a trail where my glove is right there, a 10-foot wide trail. This particular area will be a drainage swell to take the water. And then there will be landscaping in between, the little bit left between the trail and probably their proposed back block wall of the rear property lines, and then out in the street area where the pavement ends. And then before it gets to the swell, they'll landscape that area in between. So let me kind of head back to your exhibit. We'll kind of zoom in, even though this plat has a lot of stuff on it. And so that trail will, in essence, be brought out along Telegraph in this area here. And it'll just meander along, and that's where it'll be, giving access and everything along there. Now, I also want to go back and talk about this particular email that came in. And I'm going to use this exhibit, I think, down here. And Mike can jump in anytime he wants. He was in meetings with Drake, and I think Barry's part of those too. And so I just want to point out what they've kind of talked about doing, because we showed you last time up in this area by Coral Ridge, where I'm circling in red, and then down here by what they call the 14th, which is a subdivision. They had curb and gutter and sidewalk, but then it came to a stop right before out here and right here. So I guess the discussions have included that this will continue, curb, gutter, and sidewalk, a 10-foot sidewalk on this northwest side, or we refer to as the golf course side of Telegraph. And that will come in as development occurs. But on this other side, they're going to leave more of the open space area like we showed outside in this area. You can see my red pin down by the 14th again. We kind of brought those pictures up of it was landscaped, no curb and gutter, just right off to the sidewalk, and then a thick landscaping scheme that was part of the Coral Canyon development as a whole. So those are the things that have been kind of discussed, and I'll probably, let Mike and Drake talk a little more about that, but that's what the changes have been brought before you in the last 2 weeks. Of, again, taking the trail off of the backside, moving it out to the street, the Telegraph side of the development, and then they discuss what they're going to do on this other side of Telegraph at, present and future. So I hope I addressed that. Mike, you want to jump in and add anything else that I may have missed?
So I did meet with Drake last week, as well as Brandon Wright in my office, and basically Drew kind of hit the high points on it. One of the issues is that we actually need to address the development agreement, the PCD plan, make amendments to that. And, Drake agreed with that. Not necessarily concerned that we hold up this development for that development agreement, but, they understood that we need to move ahead on that right away. We do need to talk about curb gutter on there and discuss that with them and even their engineers. I'm not opposed to not putting curb and gutter in, but we need to deal with our drainage and we need to have at least some kind of landscaping if we're not putting a curb and gutter in. But those are issues that we'll talk about when we get into the discussion of the development agreement and the PCD plan.
So Mike, was there any discussion on the trail heading all the way north and tying into the waterfront? Is it Waterfront Road right there? I forget.
Yes, so the trail would run up the south side all the way, basically from the landfill road all the way up to basically we'll tie you into that waterfront, which is I guess kind of a concrete trail when you get up a little bit further, but tied to SR9. The north side would be a sidewalk that would tie in the 14th Fairway development to the Razor Ridge development.
So I have some, but does that get done as part of this development or is that just a card? Because they're the master developer for Coral Canyon.
They are. And those are what we need to, I talked with Drake about that, told him that they need to come up with a phasing plan on how those will be phased in. The development isn't going to be on the north side. There's very minimal development. Those improvements still need to be done on the north side. The additional thickness of the asphalt needs to be done. And I believe we talk about on this project, they will actually pave the entire section of the road across.
Mike, what's that? The additional thickness of the asphalt? What are you referring to there?
So when we reconstructed this road, I think it was around 2002, we reconstructed the road. We put in 3 inches of asphalt, and we put our asphalt thicknesses in for our demand on the road, our load rating. We're exceeding that load rating now, so we need the additional 2.5 inches to bring it up to 5.5 inch thickness asphalt to be able to handle the weight of the vehicles and the number of the vehicles on the road.
So Mike, maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but did you say if we require curb and gutter?
Well, the curb and gutter is required in the development agreement.
Right. Yeah, it's one of the conditions, but
Yeah.
That's what I just wanted to clarify. It is.
What we want to look at is I don't necessarily need curb and gutter. Curb and gutter is really to divert the flows of stormwater.
Right.
I would rather not try to get all that stormwater into pipes and focus it. If we can look at how they're going to deal with the drainage there, if there's some natural channels, drainage channels along there that we can put in, similar to 14th Fairway and up on top of the Ridge Highland, their landscaping, how they've done those. I'd be in favor of looking at that, but we have to have a master drainage plan for that whole section of the road. We can't just keep doing little pieces and hope it works.
Right. And I would completely agree with that thought. I actually went out and walked that a little bit and walked up to the top of the anticline and just kind of looked around a little bit and tried to see what that trail would look like. And then as I think back on it, I would have liked that trail. I think it would have been a nice addition, but I understand that this was probably what needed to happen. But I would be very aware. I realize that condition number 4 also one of the conditions number 4 talks about adequately addressing the prevention of nuisance water. And that, depending on where that first phase ends, that could be an issue, or it could be a natural, a natural drainage. But I just wanted to clarify that. But I do agree with you, Mike, that we need to look at that curb and gutter and see if it's actually what's best for there.
Yeah, this will be a very similar cross section to Washington Parkway, minus the landscaped center median.
Okay, so before we get tempted to move off that page, Drew, I was going to have you. The only thing I learned in art class is that everybody has a different interpretation than what the artist may have intended. So you're showing the yellow in here is the trail on the south. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, going from point up here, as they said, Water Road down to Landfill Road on this side.
Yeah.
And the blue is area that'll be curb, gutter, and sidewalk when development happens. Now, again, we have these gaps, as Mike said, you know, that are right by, let's just say, the golf course here, and I'll try to pick a color that stands out, but we can still maybe use. But you're going to have issues along here. There is not going to be any development. What do we do?
There will be there, Drew.
Oh, that's right, because of this area. But right here, there may not be, and may not be, you know, depending on how everything works out. Right here is a question mark. This one will be short enough that can probably still happen, even though the golf course is right there. But that's what Mike was talking about, was just getting those gaps.
So other than the sections that you circled, those would be, we would presume that those would be handled by the developer.
So all of it's handled by the developer. It's just when it gets handled by the developer. So that's where I'm saying I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here, because it sounds like we need to do a PCD amendment on how Telegraph gets addressed and the phasing plan for Telegraph on this development.
I would just throw out an idea that I agree that there are some amendments and updates that need to happen both to the PCD and to the development agreement. My thought is that we make the approval of this preliminary plat contingent, or the approval of the final plat contingent upon a development agreement and an updated PCD, and amended to include the trail section with the 26-foot trail section, the 10-foot trail, the drainage, and also the section of road and north side improvements as per the diagram. To me, that allows the developer to move forward with the project, but also allows us to put in triggers as to when those things need to be done. And also it helps us to understand how that's going to ultimately look when it develops, clear from Water Road down to Landfill Road.
Staff, what is the expectation from your, unless the developer's on the line, what is their expectation as far as when some of this would be put in?
Well, I think that's something that that we're going to discuss on the when we start doing the development agreement and the PCD. What are the trigger points of those improvements on both sides of the road? And I'm very comfortable with that final plat until the development agreement and PCD are amended.
Mike, you're breaking up there. We couldn't hear you.
So what I said was that I'm comfortable with approving this with the non-approval until the development agreement and PCD are completed, not given a final plat approval on this. And then the development agreement and the PCD will go through that and discuss that with them, and we'll set up those key trigger points when those improvements are going to be completed. The key to me is that I have a master plan for that, so we can look at what improvements are going to be done, so we know this whole road will work when they are finished.
Mike, does it make sense?
Phases.
Does it make sense to put the final plat approval contingent upon those drawings and those documents and maps being updated?
Yes, because that'll have to be part of the PCD.
But the concern I have is we're given them vested rights with this preliminary plat right now. So if we
Say that again?
Yeah,
we're giving them vested rights right now with this layout. What we see today is not what they're proposing.
Yeah, they have vested rights in just this development. And so with this development, they're going to do all the improvements on Telegraph, and I believe it was do the widening across. Now they also have to still meet all of our, they have some vested rights, but they still have to meet what public works staff are requiring for improvements on those.
But I think what my concern is, Mike, is that we're saying we're approving this with conditions of, hey, we're going to work on this road here. It might be this, it might be that. I'm not clear on what we're doing. And so I'm sitting here going, why don't we have a plan of what you're proposing from the developer of what's going in for this development, at least this one. I understand maybe the other ones aren't, but right now we don't have this one identified. I don't have a commitment that we're building the trail to the north. I don't have a commitment that we're building the road out front. And we're saying it's part of their development agreement that they have to do that. But I, for one, like the trail on the back. I'm all for those curb and gutter and sidewalk on the north, if that makes sense. But I was fine with the trail on the back being the only route. But that's just
and
me.
they met, Drake met with myself, and then I believe it was on Monday or Tuesday, and then he met with Barry, I believe, on last Friday. And Barry, I think Barry's on, he was the same opinion. He wants that trail to run up the front of the development, not looping in and out and around. Because a lot of people are going to use this not just as a leisure trail, but to get from point A to point B.
So Mike, this is Councilman Ivy, are you comfortable with that proposal of moving it forward with those triggers that were mentioned, or do you have concerns?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that, with the trigger being that they don't get final plat until the PCD amendment is completed. And that'll have to come back to council. That's not a staff approval. The PCD amendment and the development agreement amendment, that's going to have to come back to council for approval. And I believe, we talked about that, and they were going to get moving on doing those right away.
So Mike, if I could, as Councilman Bundy, so you're saying that right now, because curb and gutter is required, you're going to say tell the developer curb and gutter is required until they come back in, get some changes to the PCD or the development agreement that says that it doesn't have to be there.
Well, I think we're going to let them not put it in as long as they do the same type of treatment as they did at 14th Fairway with the landscaping and drainage ditches and address their drainage along there. I think we're going to be comfortable with that and not go down the road of curb and gutter.
But Mike, what about on the opposite side of the street?
Well, the opposite side of the street, they'll do full width paving on that section, but the improvements won't go on that side of the street yet.
So who's going to pay for those?
They will pay for it.
When?
And that's what I say. That's why we have to have this amendment to the PCD and the development agreement, that when are those going to be, what are the trigger points for those improvements, especially in the areas that are non-developable.
I like where we're heading. I just think there's a lot of maybe when, and I just get concerned. If they had that plan in front of us today, great, we can look at it and decide, but I just am concerned about not knowing what we're getting and we're approving a preliminary plat. So I'd be in favor of tabling this until they can get that plan in front of us to look at. I mean, I'm not trying to hold them up. This is a main corridor in our road. And if they don't want to do what is required by the development agreement, they should present a plan of what they want to do. And that's all.
Drew, this is Councilman Ivy. Are you still there?
Yes.
I tend to feel like that I feel comfortable with what Mike presented as far as those individual trigger points. And I think that that's what you guys do. And I think you're great at it. Drew, would you weigh in on this and whether you have concerns or whether you recommend approval of the trigger points or what you would suggest?
No, I'm kind of fine. I go along with Mike. I think that, and I think the applicant knows as well that we need to get this thing, updated, and so that we both know where we're heading or where they want to head and where we want to head. At this point, we're willing to make some concessions, I think, from originals. And so I think they ought to take advantage of that and come in and get that done. And I'm fine leaving it as a condition, adding number 16, that an update to Telegraph road improvements will be approved by the council before the final plat is approved.
Thank you.
Is the applicant on? I just would like to hear maybe their thoughts if the applicant feels that what we've talked about a little bit with staff and myself about an additional condition, number 16, that would address updating and amending the PCD and the development agreement.
Absolutely. This is Drake Howell representing Coal Mayor Council. So thankful to have another chance to be before you, and we appreciate the time we've spent with staff over the last couple of weeks since our last meeting, and we're in full support of the idea that Mike and Drew are presenting, and I guess Councilman Staley, that you proposed to set a trigger point where we don't get final plat approval on this preliminary plat until we've made those updates, revisions to the necessary sections of the PCD and the development agreement as well. We're in full support of that. Just to maybe provide some certainty to Councilman Coates as it relates to this specific project, as Mike Shaw indicated, we have full intention to improve the full width of Telegraph, even though, as you know, typically development only pays for the half of the road at the time they develop. We will improve the full width of Telegraph in front of the boulders, this area that we're developing, except for just that curb and gutter and sidewalk that will be on the golf course side of Telegraph. That will be improved when the commercial area that's identified in the Coral Canyon Master Plan for that area is developed. At that time, the curb gutter sidewalk will go in on the north side or the golf course side of the section across from the boulders. But yeah, our intent is to do the full width, meaning, you know, any additional travel lanes, the increased thickness for the boulders at this point, and then we'll proceed with the rest of Telegraph in this plan that will be included in the PCD amendment and development agreement.
Thank you, Greg. Any additional questions or comments? Anybody want to make a stab at a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we approve an ordinance, that we approve the preliminary plat for the boulders at Coral Canyon, located at approximately 3950 East Telegraph Street, with the additional condition number 16 that would read that final plat approval be contingent upon an amended and updated PCD to the applicable sections and development agreement that is approved by the council, and that the development agreement and PCD updates include improvements along Telegraph Street from Water Street to Landfill Road, including road width, additional travel and turning lanes, etc. Curb gutter or sidewalk on the northwest side per the renderings and as explained, on a 26-foot landscape area, 10-foot trail and drainage trail system and drainage along the southeast side. And I would ask staff if I missed anything that should have been addressed in that.
It sounds good to me. Mike, you okay? I think.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second.
Mayor, I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second.
As a matter of discussion, so Councilman Coates, you had some specific things that you were trying to get, and I appreciate that. Did this, I take it this didn't answer everything you wanted?
No, it doesn't. I think if what we're proposing should be presented in front of us, we don't have an updated preliminary plat from just the discussion that they had in the last week. Felt like that should have been put in our packet over the last 2 weeks, if that's what they were going with. We don't have depiction of the trail heading to the northeast, and I think we're ahead of, you know, overall the development. I don't have a problem with the development. I just think the Telegraph issues would need to be addressed.
You're basically going to get those at the final plat stage.
I know, but what if it doesn't work? What if we're asking them to do something and the drainage isn't adequate in front, and all of a sudden we have to and then they lose a whole lot of lots, that changes preliminary plat. So we're saying, hey, you can have this many lots, and then, oh, we're just tricking you because we didn't finalize our engineering and understand what's going on along Telegraph. That's my concern is, so I just think
Can I ask staff to respond to that?
So with a preliminary plat, that's fairly common. You're not going to have engineered drawings. So you possibly could lose some lots. You could possibly pick up some lots. And that's when you'd adjust it at the final plat.
I understand that. That's one of my concerns.
I understand where Councilman Coates is. You know, I tend to agree with him as well that, you know, we maybe should have all these up front. I know this has been in the process for a while. And Drew, maybe bring up the last exhibit because that might help them out. It actually shows the cross section that they're proposing.
Yeah, I kind of zoomed in on it's both these. You kind of see here the half section.
The new one that he submitted the other day has a different cross section.
Well, it kind of looks like this, but yeah, let me find that one for you.
I think the biggest thing is that's them depicting what they want to change it to in the PCD, but it's not approved yet. That's all I'm saying is we haven't done the process of the update of the PCD. And I'm very curious about the phasing on how these things get funded for each phase along this road, because it's not fully developable along the whole section of road. Those are my concerns.
Yeah, I was just going to tag on to Mike just because I know Councilman Ward asked the question. I'll just kind of, you know, on my side as well. If anything changes, certainly, you know, dramatically, if lots are added, I usually will have them, if not always, come back and amend their preliminary plat before the Planning Commission and you, the City Council. If they lose lots, it depends on how much they are and how much of a change it is. I may not always have them come back because again, it's less lots, less density, etc. But if the change is significant and I'm pretty, I fall on the side of I'd rather run it before the Planning Commission and City Council than trying not to. That's always been my take for my 20 plus years in the business. So just for your assurance that if it changed that much on anything, they still have to come back and amend because again, the final plat can only go forward if it conforms, and I say pretty tightly to that approved preliminary plat. So if it changes that much, you're going to see it again in an amendment for what that's worth.
Okay, then. Help you, Councilman. Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
IVI.
Coates, nay. Only on the fact that we don't have the PCD amendment first.
Thank you. That passes 3-1.
Mayor, can I take a point of personal privilege?
Sure.
We're just going to make a comment to the room in general that it's a tiny bit hot in here. I've looked over the agenda. It really doesn't get any more interesting than what we've already covered. I was just going to say, if like a scout wasn't interested in this, I would respect that.
I just texted him.
Put on a better show.
And thank you all again for that wonderful flag presentation.
That truly was very good. Thank you.
On that note, can we turn down the heat a little bit, Mayor? It's so hot in here. Okay, thank you. I mean, I knew you had me in the hot seat, but man.
Turn that heat on.
Item 7, ordinance, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-14. Request to change the Brio PCD by changing the conceptual site plan map, the circulation plan map, the verbiage in section 3.1A, commercial land use summary of the design guidelines and standards located at the northwest corner of Buena Vista Boulevard and Main Street. Applicant, we need to strike Reed Scow off that. It's been on there for a few times.
That tells you how long this application has been in, doesn't it? So yeah. We'll just call it Cole West as the applicant here.
Thank you.
Okay, for the council, this of course is the ending of the 2-week holdover. This item is ready for city council action. I will go back and remind you of your planning commission's recommendation, which the planning commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-14 for the zone change request amending portions of the Brio PCD project plan to you, the city council, and with staff's considerations and the findings and subject to the conditions in your report. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have come across in your 2-week thought process.
Could I ask a question, Drew? It indicates a 2-week holdover. That suggests to me that we're just burning 2 weeks, but the intent is that there's more information that would be provided on any development, right? That when it's delayed, there's more information that will be coming about.
No, I think what you'll want to do is maybe after the meeting, because we won't burn time here, meet with your other council members. I know, being new, you might want to just get why the 2-week thing happens. And I can come in and talk to you after the meeting and explain what it's all about.
Okay.
But it's not for more information. It's to let you digest the public hearing.
Okay.
And, it's kind of really what the 2-week holdover is about, is to let you not have to make a decision right away after a public hearing, but give you time to digest that and then come back and make a decision 2 weeks later.
All right. That explains it. Thank you.
So I kind of had a question for the council. So ultimately looking at this decision, I was ultimately good with everything. And the concern I had reading it the first time was the commercial clinic just going to a designated C2 was one of my concerns, but hearing that there was no public comment, if I'm correct on this, that either we weren't burned out Brio from commenting or they really don't have a problem with it. So, and they're usually a pretty vocal group.
Yeah.
So I've my resignations have backed off because there was no public comment. So I just wanted to, I don't know what the other council members have felt on it, but that was my only concern.
So I had a question about that as well, because we're in a PUD, right? Or a PCD. But we're specking out that section will be a straight zoning C2.
No, they're just referencing that it'll use the C2 criteria is what we will refer to. And there's times you'll see that it'll say refer to the cities this, in different parts of the code. And that's all this is really saying, is that the permitted uses in a C2 is what they are going to allow in this commercial area of their PCD.
So, and again, this is kind of going back to my point earlier, which is it would be really helpful when studying this out to be able to look at what is already on the PCD, to have that included in the documents to know what the change is here. So do you have that in front of you to show me where that change?
I did that for you, Councilman.
Yeah.
In your report, if you wanted to read it, on the commercial area, I showed you what the current language says and the new proposed language is. So that one.
So I've got the language. What I don't know is the area of it specifically.
I think what I would like to, on what Councilman Ward is saying, is it'd be nice if we just had the PCD books on our folders so that we can go, there's only so many in the city. Just go this PCD, we could go click on it and open it up, because there's such big documents. We're only getting little clips of what's in the PCD. Sometimes it might be good to reference the PCD back.
Yeah, that'd certainly be better than what we've got here. I mean, there are times when you're trying to go back to the council meeting where it was posted up, but you have to remember if something was amended or changed between that time, it would be really nice to have just kind of some place to stick those documents to reference back to. Because I see in there your language where you're describing that. I just don't have the visual reference. As a matter of fact, in the description there, it references 2 maps. It references where am I at? I just lost my place. It references map 201 and 203, if I remember right. But now I can't find it now. But I only see the map. I only see the one map actually in the packet that's provided here. So yeah, so the map that is in here is marked 2.1. So it references 2.1 and 2.3. But the only thing included in the map or in the packet here is 2.1.
Okay, and Councilman, again, I'm just trying to point out, last week we talked about the only change is this went through right up here. See where my red is?
Okay.
Where that road is changed. So it would just change the 2 point whatever is the circulation plan.
Yeah.
And I just pointed out in this map, that's all it changed right here. This went from a T intersection to
Right.
not an intersection at all.
So yeah, but then there's all this other written discussion about the C2 zoning, as well as in the density. You didn't agree with the density definition that they had posted in there, and you kind of slightly modified that.
No, what we did was just said that we're going to, and as we went through last time, we scratched the one. And
So
is it part of that?
in the document, it states that it says note density may be moved from one land use to another land use as long as the overall density does not exceed 856. Staff is not comfortable with this statement. Staff, however, is more willing to accept other added statements on the same, on the sample map in the same area that states dwellings, and then you change the language just a little bit. So I apologize. I wasn't here last week, but in reading the agenda, I was really only expecting to see a change in the road. But so all this other language here and changes to density and language and C2 is, I guess, is my question. Hobby caves, the concern that you had with hobby caves. I'm just reading what's in there.
Yeah, and I'll be glad to touch that. I did forget you were not here last time. But again, I'll just go through.
I guess I don't need to have you go through all of it, but this is all part of the change, correct? So it's not just the road, the intersection that you
No, if it was just the road, you wouldn't have all this other language on here. In the more specifically, it goes through each one. And the road was just the one on the different maps. We just didn't have them go because I felt it was easy just to explain. The change right here on the road was pretty simple, that it just doesn't go through here like it is normally, currently. And they're not going to do that, which Public Works is very happy about, and to keep that not on there on this busy road. So that was a very minor. That's just 2% of the other 98% on all the other stuff we talked about in here.
Yeah. So I guess for the council at this point, the council was basically in favor of these other modifications of statement, including the modification of the PCD to allow them to move density around, so long as it basically doesn't exceed 856 total units.
No, that was the recommendation. We said to scratch this top one, the note.
I just basically read that directly from your statement.
Correct. And this is what that meant was this. Staff does not want this one.
Okay, yeah, but so the upper portion, note, staff doesn't want this.
And the planning commission agreed with that.
The second portion of that, the staff is recommending, as if I'm reading this right, dwelling, land use, acreage are approximate and may change depending on market conditions as long as the overall density does not exceed 856 total units. That's what you suggested, correct?
Yes, to leave that one in. The one with the star on it right there. Yep.
I don't have a star on mine.
You won't because I just barely.
On the map there. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
What could you conceivably see coming in? It's been the original PCD approval. I think it called for a clinic or an assisted living or something like that. What potentially could you see coming in there with C2 zoning? Obviously, the developer would be very conscientious of anything that comes in to their development, but what could you see come in instead of something like that?
There was some language in here that I presume that was from the developer about the C2 zoning and what they expected. I'll let staff respond to your comment.
Yeah, basically, it actually just kept it very simple. I'll go back. The new proposed language is that the commercial designated parcel at Brio will include such uses as retail sales in conjunction with the city's C2 zoning district, administrative, professional, mixed uses. But what we dropped was the horizontal and vertical along with hobby caves may be appropriate. The applicant was fine with that, so we scratched that at the planning commission level. And so they just want to drop that sentence off. Again, so what I could see going there to get back to that, especially just knowing, again, I'm not here to offend anybody who lives in Brio, but maybe a Walgreens, more of a drugstore that might be helpful. Again, a lot of the people that live here are retired, a little bit older. I could see a restaurant of some sorts, things that would probably cater to 55 and older type folks. Who knows, maybe a golf store, might be a prop.
How big is that piece? It doesn't tell us how big, at least that I could see it may have, but do you know the size?
Yeah, it's right here. It's 4.2 acres.
So it's a pretty decent size.
Which
Correct.
one? 'Cause I missed that as well.
It's 4.2.
It's 4.2 acres.
And really what they're doing is they're just giving themselves more flexibility in what they can do with it. Staff has some preferred language to that. They're also trying to give themselves more flexibility in how they use their density, and staff also has some preferred language as it regards to that. Is that correct? Is that a correct summary?
Yes, it is. And let me just on this history of this commercial piece, for those who don't know, over here across the street where those apartments are being built, at one time that was going to be an assisted living. In fact, they might have been talking to Ovation for all I know. We never did know who they were talking to. Yeah. And there was going to be an assisted living with apartments here. And so that's why they thought it would be really good if that assisted living apartments went over here, that they would have reserved this for a clinic for those clients to be able to go across the street, and use that. Would have been one of the options in this area. But since this is not an assisted living, they wanted to drop that because that's what it almost feels like when you read the PCD, that it had to be almost something designated toward, kind of a clinic. But they're saying nobody will want to build a clinic there. It's just there's no draw for that right now. Doesn't mean they'll never come, but the draw is definitely not there without that assisted living across the street.
So Drew, kind of jumping in where Councilman Staley was talking. So you could see all of those different types of C2 type zonings that could come in there in your opinion. But if we grant them what they're asking for in this change, then none of the things that you brought up would come before council again. It would basically be a part of the PCD, and basically almost anything that would fit in a C2 zoning would be acceptable in that zone, correct?
Correct. And you have that in your other PCDs throughout the city. Coral Canyon, Sienna Hills, Stookie Farms. It's the same kind of layout. Luckily with this, it's only 4.2 acres versus all those other ones I just referenced to have 20 plus probably acres in commercial areas.
But they have to abide by the design standards of the PCD. The look.
That was my understanding with the PCD, and maybe mixing up my ordinances here, but I expected to see virtually anything that was a change to this, which would include the specific layout of that. They would come in and we would approve the design standard of that. That was the whole part and whole point of the PCD, was to have input. But the way I'm reading this, it sounds like it's basically just a C2 zoning inside of a PCD. And as long as it kind of wink, wink meets the design standards, it's okay. And it wouldn't necessarily even come before us.
That's one of the blessings and the benefits of having a PCD. If you're on that side, that's, one of the encouragements for them.
Well, I'm not even considering it as a sword, but I was just understanding it. It's different than what I had expected to see here. So I guess part of my other problem here is there's a lot of language change. And I'm a little bit losing track of where it is. Honestly, when we come into this much modification of language within it's not necessarily a contract, I would almost prefer to see a red line. This is what's out. This is what's in, so that as I'm reading it, there's just not this guessing. I just feel like there's entirely possible that I'm missing some change that the staff or the developer feels like is in, but I'm not necessarily picking up on it because it's on multiple different pages of just suggesting we think we should do this and this is okay, but that's not.
No, come on.
So Drew, so just so the council members know also, because I've watched Drew as he's worked on, in particular, this Brio project and some other PCDs over the years. When someone comes in for a modification of the PCD plan, which is huge, you're right, it's huge. I've seen Drew go back to the developers and say, well, if you want to make this change, you give me a red line showing what changed that. Because I've seen on Drew's desk a number of times where he's had where they provided, here's where change, it's a red line strikeout of what the change is. Drew, I think it might be helpful, maybe, and we should probably be encouraged by the fact that we have council members, they want that 20-pound PCD plan to look at that they can have and go through as a change comes, because these are sometimes decade-long projects as they go along, and maybe it's. So if Reed's on the line right now with Brio.
It's not Reed. Reed does not work for Coal West anymore. It's Drake Howell.
Oh, sorry, Drake. So if Drake's on the line, what might be helpful, because I think Council Wardmick said a good suggestion, that is, why don't we have a project plan, the project book for council members they can just turn to when this comes up, because they are interested enough to look into it themselves as it is, because I can tell you that Drew pins them down quite a bit. When they come in for a modification, Drew really pins them down. What are you changing? What is that going to look like? And I think we forget as staff sometimes that a 2-week jump or a description from a month ago doesn't translate as easy to us without being able to see exactly where it got changed in that 500-page document. So,
well, and in the end, it's not going to matter what conversations you had. It's going to matter what's in writing.
Right, and they comment, because I can tell you, Drew makes them do that for him. So it may be just in the future, at least, Drew, to think about that they could provide that kind of a thing for you to provide to the council, so you don't have to prepare a whole docket comp or red line strikeout showing the changes, because I know you have them do that for you sometimes. In fact, every time. So that's just a thought anyway. Drake, you might want to just get copies of your whole project plan on this one, on Coral Canyon, for the council in the future, so they can do some of their own research when they're looking at these too.
Hey, Drew, this is Councilman Ivy. It's fairly common that PCDs come in to be amended from time to time. But my question is, as I go back to the reason for doing this, am I correct in understanding that they did a market study and they determined that the original proposal wasn't as productive as what they were hoping, and so they changed direction? Is that somewhat true?
Yeah, and I'll just pull up that area for you. Sorry, I was just going to my report. I think I kind of spelled out the changes of most of this as density and movement there, but we'll get back to this. This particular color, and this area is kind of what drove this whole thing anyway. Right here, if anybody has been through Brio on Main Street, you'll notice there's townhomes right here, 2-story townhomes in this area right here. They built those, even put a duplex, I think, in the Parade of Homes this last year. Nobody bit. In fact, they got a bunch of comments saying, well, we love Brio, we just don't want stairs. We don't like homes with stairs. We don't want basement. We don't want 2-story. So all of a sudden, Brio people and their marketing said, well, if that's not going to sell, we better go rethink this. Now, this area up here was earmarked for townhomes, and so was this area right here earmarked for that same product. So after people give them the feedback saying, hey, we're not going to buy that product here, we like what you're doing in Brio, they wanted to come back, and that's why they're here tonight, to be in essence with you. It's what drove this amendment, is to not have the townhome projects or townhome option anymore, but they had to come back and amend their site plan. So they're adding a new type of patio home called and referred to up in your diagram up there as the patio home 3. And that's what's going in this area down here where the star is. And that's what's going up here where the star is. And then they also got people that said, you know what, we don't want your bigger, nice standard home off of this very busy road. So now they're taking the patio home from here and proposing it up here. And so that's the simple change on it right there. They blocked off this road as we just discussed, and then they changed the language down here on that commercial piece. So that's why we're here tonight, because this pinkish area or mauve, whatever you want to call it, isn't working. So they came back and wanted to bring in a new style of patio home where this star is here and this one here, and then take care of this concern they have off this busy road, and then change the language down here in the commercial.
And I get that, and I respect that. I think that's great to kind of listen to what people want to purchase and bring a product forward. The language though still is the language in the document. And so we're giving them approval to do that with the change in language, but we're also giving an extension of approval to do a couple of other things. And so because these are so big and there's a lot of pieces to it, and I'm just getting a little bit lost in some of the details with the sections, just to note, and a few other little points of interest here. I'm having a trouble telling what is actually going to go into the statement or into the new, I appreciate the notes in there. I appreciate that stuff, but I'm having trouble figuring out what's actually going to be in there and what it's going to replace. And I don't get that. I don't have that issue when I have a red line document on some of those things. And I'm trying to think forward to okay, if they're going to do market studies in there and they're going to change, what else could be changed in the future that we can't see now that we honestly may hate in the future? Because we're opening it up quite a bit. Because as long as they stay within the 856 units, turn one section of it into a golf course, and the other section they turn into a 50-story high rise.
Well, again, going to your site plan right here, Councilman, doesn't allow them to do that. This is the map you're approving right here. This tells me in this area right here, going to my diagram, that's going to be a single family detached patio residential number 3. I have 9.5 acres
of the statement that says that they, based on market studies, they can modify density. That's just a 1 here, 2 there kind of a thing.
Correct. Let's just say in this one, I have 69 units, but all of a sudden they have a request for like 5 more of these single family detached patio residential. I'd let them bump over and build, take off so many of those here and extend this over a little bit. Now, if it got too drastic, I'm not going to let them just swipe out the whole thing, but it allows them to bump over a little here, bump over a little there, not have to go through the whole amendment just to do maybe 5 or 6 units of one, but they're not going to come in and turn that into a 7-story building. That's not what this really allows them to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to change subjects, but one of my, I guess I'm trying to say frustrations, and it's same with the last application, is we have a 2-week holdover. You've asked them to axe out all these notes and it's still not updated. And then you're asking us to approve it. We have 2 weeks to decide on this stuff. Why isn't it being updated and delivered to our packet so that it's updated of what you expect? That was one of my problems on the last application. They had time, they met. Same thing here. There's things that you want cut. Why isn't it cut before it comes to us?
Well, that's a simple answer for you, okay? Because you know what? They're allowed to apply for what they want to apply for. And staff will make recommendations. Your planning commission will make recommendations. That's still their application right there. And I don't, unless they're really going to want to do that, but for the most part, a developer wants to come in and say, no, that's what I want to change.
But then we have to say, condition this, condition this, condition this, condition this to clean it up. And then does it ever get done? That's what I'm concerned. Do this get cut, or is this the map they're going to get put in their file because we never saw it? That's my concern, because that's happened and I've seen it. So I just want the maps updated based on what, I mean, if this is what they're proposing and they don't want to change it, but it doesn't sound like that's the case.
I totally appreciate that, but again, the rule of thumb for all the time, I leave what their application is in case you want to let them have that.
Sure.
That's what you need to know what they applied for. And so that's why we'll come in and say, this is what staff is recommending this. That's why we throw those conditions on, because again, you may think, you know what, staff, I appreciate your thought on that, but you know what, I'm going to let them have that. Because I've had it go both ways in my career is all I'm trying to tell you. But I'll be glad.
So we're just furthering the discussion about the discussion, right? And the documentation is, I'm kind of the same way as Councilman Coates. If you have recommendations, to me, I don't mind seeing what they're. Matter of fact, I really want to see just a straight proposal from the applicant. But if we're going to talk about and make suggestions, I would prefer to see those in red line changes. And if the council directs for specific items to be put in, even if we have to change the color in there, I'd like to see those, especially on these documents that are so cumbersome and difficult. There's just a lot of room in here for problems, and you have to live with it for a long time if you get it wrong.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions for the developer or for Drew? Anybody want to consider making a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-14, a request to change the Brio PCD by changing the conceptual site plan, circulation plan map, and verbiage in section 3.1A, commercial land use summary, the design guidelines and standards located northwest corner of Buena Vista Boulevard and Main Street. And more specifically, item 1, replace the planned single family attached SFA townhome with a 40-foot wide single lot family detached SFD patio residential in phases 3G and 5A.
Second.
And item 2, replace a portion of the planned single family detached SFD residential with single family detached SFD patio residential in phase 6. And item 3, amend the PCD language to allow the more flexibility within the commercial clinic parcel located along the southern portion of Brio Parkway. Thank you.
Second.
Could I maybe?
Absolutely.
Could I make a couple other suggestions to add, Councilman? I really like your motion. I'm wondering if we might address some of the issues that Councilman Ward brought up to use the staff proposed language.
You know, I considered making that part of the motion, but I think that as a council, I would like to see that too. In the future, I think that would be very helpful, but I'm not sure, Mayor, does that need to be part of the motion, or can we?
It won't go into the final plat, or it won't go into this change in the PCD unless you do.
Yeah, I think I recommend you would.
Can I maybe give a recommendation on how that might, as it relates to commercial in that section and density, that we use the new proposed language in commercial, striking mixed uses, parentheses, horizontal, vertical, along with hobby caves may be appropriate. And then use in the density, use the staff proposed language. Dwelling land use acreages are appropriate and may depend on market condition as long as overall density does not exceed 56 units.
I've considered myself pretty sharp, but I can't repeat that.
Since we're still discussing that, remember that the staff actually approved that, but did not like the hobby caves. And we haven't really discussed that because this is a big change. There's a lot in there, but.
Would it suffice that? Did you just include in the motion that we would include the red line
Yeah, just use the staff proposed
Staff
language
proposed language
and including striking mixed use and man caves.
and striking mixed use and land use.
I'm fine to my second to go with those.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second. Go roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Warden, A.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
All right, that is approved 3-1. Item 7, consideration, or 7B, excuse me, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-15, excuse me, request from open space to residential single family 10,000 square foot minimum R110 located approximately 600 west and 2300 north. Applicant First Nation Investment LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another 2-week holdover item, which is now completed, ready for City Council action. Just to, again, remind you of the recommendation by your Planning Commission. It was unanimous recommendation to approve Z-20-15 for this zone change from open space to the single-family 10,000 square foot minimum. And that's based, of course, on the findings in your report. And I think you're very familiar with this one. This one, they had to do a general plan amendment a couple months ago, and now they're following up with that zone change.
So Drew, do we need to make a?
May I interrupt? I think that is supposed to say 2300 south.
No, it's north.
It is north? Okay, I apologize. Okay, all right, my bad. Carry on.
My question was, we had conversations during the general plan amendment on the being to have access for maintenance in the wash. Is that something we need to do here at the, I mean, no, it's just a zone change, or is that something you want to do a preliminary plat?
No, they'll do it at preliminary plat with the Public Works getting that in there, and we may even have it on the final plat. No, but we'll do it at the platting of this particular phase of Washington Vista.
And I just want to make sure it's for a maintenance for emergent. You guys can figure out the language with Starkey on the language for the maintenance of that wash. But
yeah, we have several of those throughout, so we'll just kind of use that same standard language.
Anything else? If there's no other discussion, I would motion that.
Are you back in the game?
Hey, I am. See, I don't waste any time. I'm getting right on it. I make a motion that we approve the ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-15 from open space to residential single family 10,000 square foot minimum R110 located at approximately 600 west, 2300 north.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's go with the roll call vote.
Aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye. Staley, aye.
Thank you. Item 7C, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-16, request from residential agricultural 1A lots to residential single-family 10,000 square foot minimum R110, located approximately 400 West Merrill Road. Applicant Dave Nasel.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is the last of 3 2-week holdovers, which is now complete. Again, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-20-16 for this zone change, again, from the RA 1 acre to the R110 zoning designation based on, of course, the findings in your report. Be glad to answer any questions you might have on this zone change.
Mayor, if there's no discussion, I'll make a motion. We approve the ordinance adopting zone change request Z-20-16 to request from residential agricultural 1 acre lots to residential single family 10,000 square foot lots with R-1-10 located at approximately 400 West and Merrill Road.
I second the motion.
Motion and second. Roll call vote.
Staley, aye.
Ward, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Bundy, aye.
Thank you. That's approved. Item 9, agreement. Consideration to approve the Washington City Historical Society lease agreement. Ben Ray.
You know, Mayor, I'm not sure that we need more discussion, do we, council? We good on that? Then, Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the Washington City Historical Society lease agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Aye. Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
Ivy, aye.
Ward, aye.
Staley, aye.
Thank you. Resolution item 10, consideration to approve a resolution appointing a representative from the Washington City Council to the Southwest Mosquito Abatement and Control District. I'd like to recommend that Roger Bundy would take on that assignment.
A motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Staley, aye.
Just
You,
as
you're
part of
wondering
my
about
vote,
it.
I want to say, kill him.
Kill him.
Yeah. Ward eye.
Nervous about the little devils. I gotta stay away from
Aye.
them. We gotta get rid of them.
ADI.
Thank you. Did I get everybody to vote there? Okay. Item 11, appeal design standards. Consideration to approve a request to appeal the access management plan standards for drive approaches on Chaparral Ridge, Lot 63, located on Desperado Drive, Wild Horse Drive. Karen Bagener. Okay.
Wade and Nancy Borgerson.
Can you say that again into the mic? Sorry, just for the record.
We're the owners of the house, Wayne and Nancy Borgerson. Garrett Bangerter is the builder. But we have basically we have a 3-car garage up on top, and it takes up 34 feet of driveway access. And we have a side entrance over here, and it's a 2-car garage on the downside. And we're just asking for access to that garage. The garages are totally singular. They are way far away from the curb. The restriction for the city is 34 feet. So we're just asking for an additional 18 feet on the downhill side. Is that an exception? No, it is not. We started looking, or just decided that we needed to find some exceptions to the standard for the city. And within 3 blocks, we found 3 houses side by side, all having access driveways. I think you guys saw the pictures of those.
Well, I was just about to ask the question. That's not in the packet. It was, I'm trying to remember. Was that?
It was additional folder.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. I know I read it. I just couldn't find it again.
I think you saw the pictures.
Well, and I think there was an added something that was just added, right? Okay. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you, but I thank you.
Okay. I don't see any, it's on a hill. One side is fairly flat and the other one is going down Wild Horse Ridge. And they have basically no relationship. They basically have no relationship to each other. But there are 4 exceptions that we gave you of houses that have excessive driveway, even up to 56 feet. Now, I don't know if they were passed or not passed or whatever, but they exist. So,
one of these houses looks like it's in St. George. I'm just kidding.
You got to excuse Councilman Ward. You got to.
It's late. It's really
It's
late.
late, but
I virtually have to make my own fun this entire meeting
3
long.
blocks of this house. We didn't go looking for things all over town.
Okay, so which one is your house?
The one that's on the corner, it's very light in color.
It's white.
Can Drew bring that up?
Yeah, that's right. It was in the early stuff right here.
Drew, could you bring that up on the screen?
We just got the address today.
What's the address?
2807.
Oh yeah, right.
What's the address?
2807 Desperado.
Yes.
Oh, I know where that house is.
Okay,
I
right.
drove
So,
by it
okay.
last night.
Thank
It
you.
was
I got back to it here.
it was hard to find. Yeah, I got it.
How many feet do we have on the top driveway? The width of that one? How many feet is the top driveway? Yeah. Sorry.
34.
Okay.
34.
34 on the top, and we're really only, it's supposed to be 32, right?
No, 34.
Is it 34? And then the bottom one is how many feet? It was 20.
18. We're
Oh,
asking
just
for
18.
18.
And it looks like it's built now, right?
We want to move in a few weeks.
Oh, I see. It's not really built. It's just that some of it might be formed up.
It looks pretty built to me.
Is it?
Yeah, it's all drywalled and everything. It's just
No, I mean the
finished.
driveway itself.
Oh, it's all poured. The only thing that's not poured is the approach on that
On the
south side.
On the
See that
south
that
side.
part's formed up. Okay.
It is not. We didn't go beyond what we can do, but we would like to.
Could we maybe have staff give input on this? What's this? Is there their concerns? Yeah, there's Mike.
So I will jump in here. Mike Shaw, Public Works Director. So our standard is 32 feet maximum for a single family residence. And the 4 properties that he showed, gave examples.
Yeah.
3 of those were prior to our access management. So one house was built in 1998, one was 2001, the other one was 2002, the third one was 2013, just after our access management. I pulled the records on that house. That house was finalized with their driveway. That was something they did after they've got their final on the house. Didn't get a encroachment permit to cut that. So that's one that we didn't even know about. So the other 3 were prior to our access management that was adopted in 2010.
Okay, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
So his driveway that would be, I guess it would be on the south side around the corner. We also have a minimum of 50 feet away from the radius, and he's within that 50 feet of that radius. So, that's why the denial was put on that, why we would not give them the permit for the curb cut for it.
Mike, does the access management say 50? That's 50 feet from the PC.
Yes.
Okay.
And so how does it get this far?
It's a good question.
I see.
Mike, does your department look at a site plan of a home within the driveways, or how does it get to this point?
We don't. So the building department does the plan review.
So do they look at that? Do we know? I guess, Drew, do you know what do we look at there?
They do. They look at it. This obviously got missed.
Yeah, I'm looking at the site plan. It shows both driveways on it.
How did you find that?
It's the second page after the house plan.
Oh, I thought you pulled it up in some
Take
other
your
records.
finger and put it at the bottom of the page and pull up. I just have to give you a little hard time. You've just given me a hard time tonight. That's true. It's too true. Yeah. Oh no, I hope that. I mean, I used to live on a corner radius and I had a driveway just like this. Now I don't know the distances from the PC and everything, but I don't know. I know it's our current ordinances, but I kind of look at it as it was put on the site plan. It was approved as far as the site plan. I wonder, Mike, are we going to look at our access management for dual driveways on a corner lot? Because I think that's one of the benefits of corner lots is you can do dual driveways.
The problem is the conflict points on the driveway. So within 50 feet of that PC, somebody's coming around that corner and you're so close to that corner, they're watching as they go around the corner. They're not watching for somebody that's backing out a driveway.
But if it's more than 50 feet, Mike, is it reasonable to change that to allow?
We would look at it. We're in the process of redoing our transportation master plan. With that, we're readdressing our access management. Our access management, when we adopted it in 2010, and then again in 2015, when we did our transportation master plan update, we revisited it and we tried to keep it common with all the communities around us to make it so we're more uniform. 2015, everybody was still the same. But now I'm finding out that St. George has changed theirs. They're allowing a different number for their drive approaches. I think they're saying 50% of the frontage. We will look at it, but we're several months out from having that ready for council.
So define that for me. 50% of the frontage?
Yes.
So how would that be applied in this where the frontage is okay, but you've got a piece on the side? How would that?
So the frontage would be which way the house is facing. So if their front door is facing that road, that's their frontage. They don't get a count all the way around the corner as frontage.
So so that would be the only thing they would have to do is be 50% of the frontage, and the side yard could be entirely made up of driveway?
Well, no. Only 50% of their frontage could be a driveway cut.
Okay.
For the whole lot.
Right.
For the
So
whole
they're
lot.
fine with, they would be fine with that ordinance, the new ordinance that you're working on that's not ready yet. But
Yeah, we don't even know that we're going to adopt 50%. I'm saying that's what St. George is.
I understand. You're still working on it. But is in the new ordinance, what would the side yard, how would that be addressed?
Well, you still can have a side yard driveway, but you got to keep it within the 32 feet maximum. We also used to have in our old, it wasn't in access management, it used to be in our design standards. If you had a circular driveway, you could go a larger curb cut because it eliminates the backing out on the road and you're pulling straight out, which is a lot safer movement.
So Mike, the 32 feet is a maximum of a combination of 2 driveways, 3 driveways, whatever. That's the maximum, right? So if you take the sides, I have 3 at my home, for example, but I've lived there for 40 years. But I have 3 driveways, and they may be over 32 feet. I doubt it, but it's just a combination or a summation of the number of driveways can't be over 32 feet the way it stands now.
So the only way to fix this would be to grant them R2 zoning, and they could tell us that they have a renter downstairs and use that driveway.
It's late. You realize that, right?
So
That would be illegal, Councilman.
he's just teasing.
Our basement is made for that kind of a situation.
No, don't bring that up.
He's just
We're here to
teasing.
talk about the driveway.
So Mike, this is Councilman Ivy. I'm going to ask a question real quick. What would be the negative effect to grant their request for this?
The conflict points of that lower driveway backing out as the car comes around the radius, that conflict point.
Thank you.
So I want to ask a follow-up question to that. What is your recommendation for solving this at this point? It's already passed plan reviews. It's built. It's standing there. These seriously nice people are standing in front of us. What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that I have to say follow our ordinances.
Yeah.
But I understand this one.
Oh, that's true. I
understand it completely.
Yeah, I guess, from a safety, if it has to do with safety, we don't want to be stepping into anything that's maybe not considered safe, i.e. the 50 feet from the corner.
So, but we also don't want to set a precedence whether the thing is under review. Jeff, is there a better way to attach this that doesn't set a precedence, that isn't, it's a tough spot because we're past plan review. We just assume would have caught it there.
Jeff, you got to come up here. He's going to come up here and speak. That's our city attorney.
We're good.
Okay. Is it not more than 50 feet from the corner?
Yeah. How far is it from the corner, Mike?
That it's within that.
I believe Brandon went and measured it today, and I believe he said it was 38 feet.
38? That's not 50.
Now, Drew's lines aren't actually correct. That's not the PC, but.
So just for the council and everybody's information, just what the law is on these situations, because you all guess it comes up all the time. So Drew, how many building permits did we have this month?
We're going to push 90 new homes.
90. So we're probably the fastest growing city, maybe in the country right now in terms of that.
In the county.
Well, in the county, we're one of the fastest growing counties in the country. So, so here's how the law looked at these things. Everybody that develops their own land, they hire engineers who are professionals. This is what they do. They draw the plans up based on what the city standards are, based on what the building code is. And every now and again, you know, the site plan comes in and somebody hasn't put the foundation, the appropriate setback from the back wall, It happens. The law looked at it this way. You've hired somebody to do this. It's their responsibility. The city, if the city has to do it all, they might as well just do all of the plans themselves. So this is what the law says. So I'm not arguing one way or the other. The city says the city's not responsible. If it sees a set of plans, doesn't catch it, but specs say you're supposed to, building code says it, and I know council codes, this is his industry. So I agree with how he would say it. And that is, well, if the city missed it, the engineer should be off the hook on it. It's not what the law says.
That's not what I'm stating. Just so you know, I'm not stating that the engineer should be off the hook.
No.
For it. I'm saying that.
Don't take it personal, council.
No, I'm not taking it personal. I'm just clarifying my statement because Councilman Coates said.
Okay. So in serious light, Councilman Coates, I inferred from what Councilman Coates said that he implied that, and that's not true. It's true. It seems unfair. It seems if you're a landowner, you're going, well, my engineer missed it. How should I be held responsible for that? Your inspector should have caught it. Everybody agrees. All those things make sense. And we can't have the basis of changing our specs based upon nice people, because these people could put up 15 houses on that one lot. They're so nice. They could. I just don't know if that's the standard you want. The law says the city can still uphold it, and the city's not responsible for having missed it. That's the bottom line. When you make these decisions, you've done them. We've had lot lines. They haven't given enough setbacks to them. We've done it last year. But council's the only one that has the right to even change that. Mike doesn't even have the right. Mike can't change it. Drew can't change it.
But we're not really concerned about setting a precedence with this. We're worried about, from staff's standpoint, we're worried about the potential safety of having that closer to the corner than is
sure.
Specifically.
This is one of those cases where safety is
there.
the issue.
Is there any mitigating requirements that could be placed on that to help that?
Well, from my perspective, I'd still like to do this because you've heard what your public works director says. He thinks we ought to stick by our road plans. Having said that, if you do allow it, I would like us to be able to record like we did on the setback about a year ago over in Green Springs, where we had somebody that built it too close. We recorded something against the lot so that all the owners that buy it in the future know it's not in compliance with current standards, that we at least have that recorded against the land so that nobody in the future buys it, blames the city for allowing it to be at 50 feet or allowing it to be different. Gives future buyers notice that it doesn't comply with code. That's what I would suggest we do if you do that.
We put this in good faith. We built this house in good faith. I don't know what we could have done differently with that floor plan, etc. I guess the option is, I mean, the driveway is already poured down there. The sidewalk is not, the access is not poured. That's what we're looking for, is the access, so we can just finish it off. It would not change the water flow down there because the curb is full height on the top side. And I guess our other option would be to put a metal plate there or so that we can drive out of there. So we don't want to do that. We want to do it the right way. But that's what we're asking. There's a lot of room between that. I don't know what you're saying, 50 feet. It's 38 or 40 feet or whatever it is. It's a long way to the stop sign or the corner there. This is a very low volume traffic, very low. The end of the street going up this way is only 1 block long. So there's only 3 houses that potentially could be built there as it stands right now. it is not a traffic hazard.
Any additional questions, council? If you're ready, I'll entertain a motion.
So I have a clarification. Are we appealing the design standards or are we asking for variance from the design standards?
I would suggest a variance.
I would too. And I'll make a motion. We approve a variance for the driveway on the south side of Chaparral Ridge Lot 63 on Desperado Drive and Wild Horse Drive.
You don't want to make any concessions to try to only allow curb cut through part of it or any
Well,
safety?
I went out and drove there. It's a pretty small driveway. What's more of a safety hazard? Some metal plates in the road, which I know they probably can't do, but people do it all the time, all over town. That would be, I think, a code ordinance violation. But I just think, I think we need to look at our design standards. I know in other municipalities, 25 feet's plenty. I know that's not our design code, but I will leave that up to staff to design. But because it went through our building department, they approved it. Granted, there was no dimension on that plan that showed what it was, but I think it's worth a variance in this one.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Yep.
Yes.
This technically is not a variance. It's not a variance. I get if we're saying we're varying from our code, but let's call it what we did call it when we did the setback. We just say, notice it's a setback. And it's a driveway non-compliance and the city council waiver of enforcement. That's what we did to be consistent with how we've done this in the past.
So isn't that a
We
variance?
did notice of setback non-compliance is when we did the setback variant, when we changed it. And city council, so you're waiving enforcement.
I like that.
Of that. So Mike, are you good at that? Because I'm not sure if you meant variance in a technical sense when you said variance.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Also in the motion, I'd like it to specify that 18-foot maximum drive approach.
Okay.
And that's what they're
Well,
requesting.
and so do you want to see something in there for to be attached to the property?
We'll have a recording indicating it. So I have a form for it already.
Can
if
you
do approve it.
Can you say that again so I can restate it?
What's that?
Can you restate what you said? You want me to say what?
That Councilor Coates inferred that no, not that one. That your motion would be motion to waive enforcement of the waive enforcement of what? The
Non-conforming drive approach.
Width of 18.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to waive enforcement of the non-conforming drive approach on the south side with a maximum extent of 18 feet wide. Does that sound good, Mike?
Yes.
You want to second that?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Just for the record, before we vote, I couldn't be more sympathetic to your situation. My house, it's almost identical to yours. I'm on a corner, I'm on a hill, and my trailer drops off the curb and gutter every time I pull it from the backyard. So I understand. But as much as I sympathize with you, we have ordinances for a reason. And the ordinances are what we are elected to uphold. So at this time, the ordinance does not allow me to vote in favor of a variance. We've dealt with ordinances that hold us to certain things in the past. And in that respect, I'll vote nay.
Ward, aye.
IBI.
Coates, aye.
Excuse me, Bundy, nay.
Thank you. That does pass 3-2. Thank you.
Do we have the legal description so we can put it in the recordable document?
It's just lot 63. So
63 of the subdivision, yeah.
So we're good?
Brown
Okay.
Ridge.
that's the beauty of subdivisions.
Okay, item 12, purchase of property. Consideration to approve the purchase of property for right-of-way realignment located on the west portion of 3650 South to tie into 1450 South in St. George Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a parcel of property that we're looking to acquire for the realignment of 3650 South to tie into St. George's 1450 South. The property owners are willing to sell us this property for the amount of $14,000. The property is 4,343 square feet. The property to the south on this map that we show, we've already acquired that property for the road realignment. And I'll answer any questions.
Mayor, where we've already discussed this, would the council be prepared for a motion? I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of property for a right-of-way realignment located on the west portion of 3650 South to tie into 1450 South, St. George, Utah.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Bundy, aye.
Coates, aye.
IBI.
Ward eye.
Staley, aye.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. It's approved. Anything to report from your assigned committees? How's the mosquitoes doing?
We're going to get them.
Get 'em
That's all I
tomorrow.
can tell you.
Mayor, I'll give a brief update. Our legislative policy committee meetings are still weekly, and we have Friday facts that are very informative. And I'll just give a brief update. I've kind of been doing this throughout the last, 7 or 8 months. Well, 6 months since this went into effect. Just some things of note. The CARES third tranche is going to be available until November 6th, at which time, if you're one of the municipalities that hasn't claimed your money, it won't be available after that. So you'd be amazed how many cities have not claimed their money. And it just for note, the money that's not claimed will go back and be used for vaccine preparation.
Councilman, we've received our second tranche. Are we on to our third?
From what I understand, in fact, that brings up a good point, Councilman Staley. I was going to ask, because I've presented a lot of information regarding the CARES from the council side, but I haven't heard a lot from staff on it. So that might be great to have Chief Evans come in and give a brief update on those things. By the way, I really appreciate what he and the department heads have done. It's been a big task to identify those things, but it would be very beneficial to me personally to know some of those things, because I don't know a lot about the employee side of that.
And Mayor, would it be appropriate to have someone from staff that could show the expenditures and the proposals?
We'll charge Chief Evans to do
Finance,
that.
maybe even too.
Yeah, I think Chief would be happy to do that.
And then just to finish this up quickly, the one change that's been made is that in our third tranche, I don't know if you remember, the Councilman Bundy, I don't know if he was here when we talked about this, but we received just over $2 million and they'd be distributed in 3 tranches. And the third tranche will be reduced by 11%. And so our third tranche, which I believe was 800 something thousand, will be reduced by 11%. And that is being held back because there's some areas that need additional funding for troubled areas, a lot of them in and around Salt Lake and Salt Lake County. But the first tranche, just to give you the update that I know of, Councilman Staley, is the first tranche. Those items have been purchased. Second tranche is kind of a proposed list as far as I know at this point. And then the third tranche, again, I know that they're all over it. Chief has done a great job in being right on this, but again, we'd have to make sure we access that by November 6th, and it'll be reduced by, a few hundred, like 50,000, something like that. But it continues, the information continues to roll in from the league, and it's interesting to listen to some of the comments from the other council people and some of the things that they've identified use and how they appreciate it. There's some cities in our state that isn't as well off, that hasn't come through this like we have. We're very blessed where we live, and to be able to maintain our sales tax revenue and a lot of other things. I'm just very thankful. And I actually, when they made that recommendation that they hold 11% back, I really felt strongly that was the right thing to do. But as I said, we're continuing to get information. If there is any questions, council, mayor, anything that I can answer or get answers to, this is uncharted territory, this, CARES funding. We all kind of learn as we go. And we just, in this third tranche is the last chance that we have to identify the items that we might need or want. And now's the time to discuss it, because after this one, of course, there's no more. And I don't anticipate, Mayor, unless you've heard anything different, I haven't heard any additional funding coming to the cities than this. And so we're in the third tranche. Maybe we ought to have it on a workshop or whatever the mayor feels is appropriate, and then just put our minds to work and identify anything that maybe our great staff or chief hasn't thought of that we could maybe include, because we have interests and responsibilities outside of council that maybe we've got some information that we could bring forward and help with that third tranche to make for sure that we've gotten everything that we can possibly get to help us in case this happens again, or to continue to help us through the current situation. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Bundy, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
see, I know word signs.
I know, and I did.
And it just looks like I want a new house that makes me look like an idiot. But other than that, I think it can still be accomplished what we want to do.
So. Oh, hey, before you guys